All right. I don't do intros. We decided we're just gonna wing it, so we're winging it now.
Look at we ball.
Fuck it, we ball. First 10 seconds, we already dropped. Fuck it, we ball.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well,
All right.
uh, as I said I was gonna do, what things have you been consuming in your media lately?
I've been playing a lot of Helldivers recently. There was the big update a couple of days ago now, I think. Uh, added the full Illuminate back. Uh, and I'm not gonna lie to you, situation's a little fucked.
It sounds like the fire safety officer might need to get back to work.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, we might need you. It's bad. The full force of the Illuminate fleet is a lot.
You know
um,
what? Those guys were kind of a pain in the ass the last time I was playing that. So I can only imagine.
well, they didn't add a whole lot of new units.
Is it just
Let me
numbers?
put it to you this way. You know the vote list, right? Like the zombies.
Mhm.
Now imagine one of those, but like with 8 times the health and way bigger.
They just made it big.
They just made a really big one, and I mean it's really well made because it's horrific to look at. It's like a bunch of vote lists all mashed together. Uh, but damn if that thing isn't annoying. And even worse, they come in groups of like 5 or 6.
He's so goddamn big.
He's so goddamn big. And the new Overseer isn't really that bad. It's got a big gun, but like you can kill it in like 2 shots. It's really weak. Uh, I think probably the worst thing, and I say worst, it makes it a lot more fun. Uh, the Illuminate have their own eagle now. Uh, and
Eagle.
it's horrific. I'm not gonna lie to you.
What was the eagle?
That's the plane, the one that you call in airstrikes with.
Oh, like they're dropping airstrikes on us now?
Brother, they got strafing runs, and they can have like 2 or 3 of those things in the air at once.
Yo, I'm over here putting in multi-button combinations to drop napalm on people, and they're just hitting me with fucking Vulcan cannons or
They're
whatever.
just hitting you, dog. It is, and the thing is, like, I like that they have like there's a beam on the ground that shows where they're gonna hit, so you can dive out of the way.
Sure.
But like, brother, you get hit by a single one of those rounds, and unless you have like a shield or something, you're done. There's nothing you could do.
You just cooked.
You're cooked.
It's just over,
And
huh?
I mean, again, similar to the overseers with the big guns, you can kill them pretty easily. Like they go down to anything that has medium armor penetration or better.
Okay.
But like, damn, it's hard to hit those things, man.
But how do they feel about fire?
Uh, I mean, the Illumina in general, they're fairly weak to it. Fire also got a buff in the update.
Oh, let's
Uh,
go.
but I will say it's a little bit hard to hit a plane with a flamethrower.
Uh, were you there? I don't think you were there. Some of our buddies and I were playing. I think it was. I think it was Brandon who was there. Uh,
uh,
we were playing, and I was doing my fire gimmick, and we had to kill. I think they're called the Crushers, like not Crusher, the really tall bug, whatever the fuck
oh,
they
the
are.
Biotitans.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
And then the mission was like kill two of those guys. Um, so I made it happen. I like climbed on a rock, threw myself off, and dropped an airstrike on his leg as I fell by or whatever.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty good. And then the second one we had to kill, I ran up. Have you seen the film Kong Skull Island?
Yeah,
I sure did die.
I see, I see. Yeah, oh, you're gonna love actually some of the changes they made to fire because they made it so that it takes longer to set bigger units on fire, but the bigger the thing is, the longer it stays on fire.
Oh, let's go.
Uh,
I'm gonna
so it's a bit of a side grade if anything,
be a real
but it's still
menace.
yeah, it's still really good.
Gonna be a whole ass menace, dude. They ain't ready for it.
Yeah, I also recently like the last few days picked up Black Mesa, which is
Okay.
the remake of that Half-Life
Half-Life.
1 game. Uh,
That Half-Life One
the
game.
you
Yeah,
know
if you've never
in
heard of
case
it,
anyone has any doubt of it, yeah,
in
yeah.
case you hadn't heard of it,
Uh, but yeah, I've been playing that because it was on sale for like $2.
it's
Uh,
pretty good.
yeah, it's Fun game. Would recommend.
Uh,
I like that it doesn't hold my hand. Got stuck in one section for like 20 minutes, and then realized I had to walk the other direction down a hallway.
have you played the original?
I played a little bit of it. I have played Half-Life 2 all the way through. Played a little bit of Half-Life 1, but Black Mesa will be my first time playing through the whole thing.
Fair. Uh, it's very different. Not necessarily bad, but very different. Um,
Yeah.
but the whole not holding your hand thing is very Half Life One and not very Half Life Two because that game it doesn't exactly hold your hand, but it it's
It's it's
it's always there, kind of being like, here you go. And
yeah, it the way I describe it is Half-Life 2 does a really good job of hiding the fact that it's linear.
yeah,
Like there's really only one direction to go in Half-Life 2. It does a good job of hiding it, but it's still just really one direction. Half-Life 1 feels a lot more like you are genuinely lost in a big facility, cause like, damn bro, there's like 4 different directions to go, and each one will take at least 10 minutes. Which direction do I want to go?
yeah. Uh, I like those games a good bit, but uh, replaying Half Life One is kind of miserable to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, what about you? What have you been up to?
I have been playing an actual fair bit of stuff lately, which uh, people who are watching this without context are probably like, well, yeah, I'd fucking hope so. Isn't that the point? But uh, was a busy guy, so for a while playing games was really hard. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but I've been gaming a good bit. Um, I guess the easy out of the way is I've been playing Balatro off and on for like
Oh,
4 months
yeah.
now.
I've been seeing that on Steam.
I'll get home from work or I'll get on my lunch break on a short day or whatever and have like 3 hours to kill and I just play some Balatro and
Let's go gambling.
let's go gambling. Um, I've gotten to the point where the only decks I have left to unlock are for increasing the stakes that I'm on.
Uh,
So I've gotten all the decks from like beat with the previous deck, and you unlock a new one. I have all
right,
those.
right.
Which
Nice.
also means I'm brick walled because fuck me, I'm bad.
Yeah, it's real. Oh man. Those stakes, some of them get really
Like
brutal.
like the first stake, I think it's black is the first stake.
I think so, yeah.
Is fine, and then I got to red, and I'm like I'm just gonna die. No money reward from small blind. I'm worthless.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Like taking away one of the main sources of income. I mean, it's really good for creating difficulty, but like, man, it sure does create difficulty. Good lord.
I got into a habit with like the first stake where it was like you find you play a big hand in your first two lines. You know, play like a full house or a four of a kind or whatever.
Right, right,
Maximize the money you get from that, and then by that point, somewhere along the way, you're just guaranteed to get something that's going to give you more money. Be it one of the tarot cards that will like double your money or give you your Joker sell value, or one of the Jokers
right,
that
right.
gives you money, and then you can just stack up money real easy and buy every fucking voucher you ever want. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and suddenly my entire strategy is out the window.
Yeah, I forget. Does the black stakes, does that also make it so that you don't get like if you skip the blind, you get like
You get
I think
a
that's called a
tag.
voucher, right? A tag, that's what it is. Yeah. Does it remove that too, or
I don't know because I've never fucked with that in my life. I tried once, it scared me, and I never interacted with that mechanic
real?
again.
That's so real.
I
Yeah, I've never messed with those either, but I was thinking like, I mean, if it doesn't remove the ability to just get the tag if you skip it and you don't get money, there's no reason not to just skip every small blind and get all the tags.
I can only assume that it doesn't give you the tag.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It
I don't know. I'd have to
the
check.
game's designed smart enough that I think that was probably accounted for.
Yeah, yeah.
But at that point, you're right. Even though I don't know, like I tried once and I read like I pulled the tag and it did something that only helped in a certain circumstance that I was never gonna meet, and I was like, wow, fuck it, throw this whole run out.
Yeah, yeah. I rarely skip blinds in Balatro. I think the only time I really do skip any blinds is if it's like a negative tag or like a really big upgrade to the hand that I'm using or whatever.
Well, I just find like most of my strat, I guess, kind of banks on me playing every blind. I want to grind out as much money as possible and then just buy everything I want.
Right.
So
Yeah,
skipping
yeah.
blinds is just counterintuitive to how I've been playing the game thus far. and the son of a bitch who made this game knew motherfuckers like me existed and decided to spite me in particular.
Right. Yeah, I need to play Balatro more. I started playing other games and forgot about it for a while. But the itch in the back of my mind that yearns for gambling.
I don't like gambling, but I do like gambling. You know,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
you put real
Like,
stakes in there, and suddenly I don't like it. But god damn it, if I have not spent so much time in the Fallout New Vegas casinos with 10 luck, just maxing everything out and getting kicked out.
yeah, I played a little bit of Mass Effect recently, just like kind of on a whim, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I spent about an hour playing the what is it? God, I can't remember the name of it in the Quasar.
Quasar.
Quasar. Yeah, I played a lot of Quasar. I'm not gonna lie to you. Uh, I I'm sad that they don't have a really high stakes one because the most you could get out of that is like 100 something credits. But like,
The
damn, if
first
I didn't have fun.
man, that the biggest, I don't know, not complaint exactly, but like the biggest struggle I had in any of those games is just like, especially uh not so, I guess not so much the first one, but like the second and third one, the fact that they have credits limited to such a degree
Yeah, and like,
kills
okay,
me.
I love those games. Unironically, my favorite game series. But like,
You don't say.
yeah, it wasn't obvious. Uh, but like, I really wish that they rewarded exploration more. Because like, I mean, there's no reason to explore a lot of the Citadel in the first game. Because like, yeah, you could find the Quasar games and you could play that, but like, you're only gonna get a few hundred
In
credits.
the first game's defense, which is one of the few times I will really go to bat for a lot of the first game's more archaic decisions,
Uh,
it doesn't. You're right about like the Citadel and a lot of the actual like story planets where there's not a lot to really go and find. Uh, but they really, as boring as a lot of them can be, they did make going to the uncharted planets vaguely worth it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think my one and only gripe with the first game, because I'm kind of a ride or die for the Mass Effect games. But my biggest gripe is like you play through the first game, you're like, man, there's a bunch of stuff that like I really didn't want to do because it was tedious, so I'm not gonna do the like some of those side quests. And then you play the second game and it's like,
Uh,
man, I really wish I did those side quests because damn, that would have affected this and this and this.
and then you play the third game, and because you didn't do some of that shit, you miss out on entire like war
Entire
assets,
storylines.
entire
Yeah,
storylines and war assets and shit.
yeah, yeah. And I mean,
Yeah,
I like it from a world building perspective because it's like, yeah, that's the ripple effect. But at the same time, like, man, that one chick whose side quest I didn't do, it's like one that comes to mind is this criminal chick who she's like, hey, go take out my three
yeah,
rivals and I'll
yeah.
take over their corporations. And then yeah, I forget her name, but
Uh,
like, I hate doing that because it's so tedious. It's the same combat 3 times in a row.
or like not quite
And
the
but
same. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then it's like in the I think it's the second game you come across her again, and you can talk to her and she has all this dialogue, and then I think in the third game, if I recall correctly, she has a really big war asset if you let her
Yeah,
live a second time.
yeah, yeah. I think that's correct. In a similar way, like the Kahoku Cerberus side plot in the first game,
Yeah,
where
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you don't do that, then suddenly all the context for like why these are bad guys is just completely lost on you. and
Right,
then
like
and
my
then you
my
get to the
first
third game and it's like, why do I even care?
yeah,
They've done
like my
nothing but
first
help
time
me.
playing the series. Yeah, my first time playing the series, if I recall correctly, I completely missed that whole storyline because I never talked to Kahoku and I never did some of those side quests. And then I got to the second game. I was like, "Who the fuck is Cerberus? Why are they helping me?
Yeah.
Who is this?"
Everyone's like, these are such bad guys. You know that, Shepard. It's like,
I do.
huh? Who? Because
I get they're human supremacists. That much is pretty clear. But like, I mean,
like I can hate them
so
on
was
principle, but if you're just telling me I have personal beef with them, you're assuming I did something I didn't do. Which these days, obviously, I do it. But like at the
yeah,
time,
yeah, like
it was a lot easier to just not do that.
yeah, and the logic of like, oh, they're human supremacists. Like, yeah, okay, I get why people don't like them, but like, Ashley in the first game was very much a human supremacist, and like, I mean, I get why the aliens wouldn't like Cerberus, but I mean the humans
Yeah,
shouldn't have any beef with them.
without the context of Ashley having seen the horrible things they do to even their own kind, and it's like, Ashley, you're being a little dramatic.
A little bit, yeah. And I, sorry, that the second game I love. So the introduction of like when they bring back whoever it is you didn't kill on Vermeer,
Yeah,
and it's like I remember specifically Ashley's. She's hyping you up like that you're witnessing a god in the flesh, so and so, whoever the NPC is there. And then immediately the switch to I fucking hate you. I can't believe you're doing this.
180s
It's
into bitch real fast.
right, like she's hyping you up so hard in the first like the first couple seconds of that introduction and you're like, "Oh man, I'm so happy to see you again." And then immediately it's like, "You're a
Record,
stupid bitch, Jefford. Why are you doing this?
her
You're
record
such a
scratch, dude.
traitor."
I really hate Ashley, dude. I'm just gonna be honest.
Oh, yeah, honestly.
People shit talk my boy Caden for being boring, but at least he's a real one, you know.
Yeah, Caden, okay, I'll give him this much. He doesn't have a whole lot of like story depth. Like he doesn't do a whole lot, but like man, at least he's there. Like he's kind of a ride or die,
Even
whereas Ashley's like
even on Horizon in the second one, where he's still like, I'm not gonna work with you. I remember being a lot more like, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, but I can't be involved. And it's like, you know what? I'll take
I
that.
respect that.
That's
Yeah, I
respectable.
respect that. And then Ashley's just calling you a stupid motherfucker for working with Cerberus. I can't couldn't remember the name there for a second. Yeah, Half Life. What the fuck did that come from? Sorry. Uh, wow, my brain just died,
Bro, blue screen.
bro. Blue screen. Yeah. Uh, no, Mass Effect. Mass Effect. Cerberus, right? That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Sorry. Uh, yeah. In the first game, it's like they're so easy to miss. That's what I was trying to say. They're so easy to miss in the first game because there's no like differentiating factor for the starting side quest of that whole side quest chain.
it's
It's
so
just
easy
like,
to walk
hey,
past Kahoku entirely.
it is. And like the whole like because I think there's a point where they say like, hey, there's this thing happening on this planet. You should go check it out. And looking at that as a first time player, it's like, man, there is literally no reason to look at this as any different than any of my other side quests. Why would I go after this one specifically?
That's why I kind of there's a back and forth about how planned this series was, and we all know the third one was definitely not as planned.
Uh,
But I am inclined to believe that the second one was definitely not entirely as planned either.
yeah, I I heard it said, I forget by who, probably some YouTuber I watched ages ago, but like he described Mass Effect as a game series that's best enjoyed the second time you play it.
Mm.
And I think that's super true because it's a fine game the first time you play it, but you're just going to miss so much content that it's basically a separate game when you play it through a second time.
You do your first playthrough, and you make whatever choices you want to make, and that's fine. And it's a memorable experience. And then you go through with your knowledge and make the choices that you know you want to make instead, and see everything the way you want to see it, and it's a much better experience.
It is, yeah. And I remember we talked about this at some point ages ago, but like I played through Mass Effect 3 times.
Mm.
First time was blind. Second time was kind of a completionist. Third time was because I felt like it. And then I started playing it. I downloaded some mods, and first off, huge mistake on my part. The way I did it because the mod manager says, "Hey, you should download. You should back up your files." It's like, okay, that makes sense. And so I backed up my files, and then a few months later, I realized, hey, I have no space on my drives. What is happening? As it turns out, when you back up the game, that re-downloads the entire game a second time.
Oh,
And that's a big ass game.
it's like 130 something gigabytes.
Yeah, and so pro tip if you mod Mass Effect, don't back up your files. It doesn't matter.
Or
Um,
doesn't
but yeah,
matter. Uh,
modded Mass Effect, I think I really like it, mostly because I won't lie to you, the third game I downloaded a happy ending mod because it made me cry every time I played it. And
uh,
god damn it, I just want Shepard to have a happy ending with Tali, man. Come
I'm
on.
I'm not against the inherently against an ending that's bittersweet. I am, however, against the ending that's completely unsatisfying. And damn, Dang.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I like the happy ending mod. It makes me happy because then
I
it puts.
support the happy ending mod. I think that should have been an option in the first place because an easy trick to having a satisfying ending is have something work out for the main character.
Yeah. The thing I think it works the best, and honestly, it feels kind of like the way it was intended to be. Honestly, it stops you from doing the Citadel DLC until you finish,
Yeah,
and then once you finish, you have your happy ending. It's all that jazz, and then at the very end of it, it puts you into the Citadel DLC,
that's fair.
uh, which is it's such a good DLC. I love that
Uh,
DLC.
easily my favorite part of that game, which I like the third game well enough, but the Citadel DLC is what I kind of wanted the rest of the game to feel like in terms of like gameplay, and it it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I the Citadel DLC, I think the thing that sticks out about it for me is like it really makes you. That's what it feels like your life should have been as a Spectre.
I like
Like that feels like you are playing as a Spectre, dealing with some really outlandish shit, but it still feels like a kind of a cop thriller.
I like in terms of tone, I just like how it feels bittersweet in a way that more in line with the way the first two games did that, and not so much the way the third game did, which isn't actually a knock on the third game because I think that game's tone is perfect for what is going on in that game. I just like the approach to bittersweet a little bit more in that DLC.
Yeah, yeah. I will say Mass Effect 3, as much as I love it, there's a lot more bitter and a lot less sweet, and it doesn't really give you the option to pick.
It's
Like
true. I actually think that kind of works in the game's favor, just with that whole war noir tone it has going on. But
yeah, yeah.
it's also completely overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, and speaking about overwhelming, I think easily the best mod, and it shows because it's one of the most popular mods on the Nexus, if I recall correctly. But the mod that makes that assassin fucko just not talk,
Fuck you, Kylag.
yeah, Kai Lang, it just makes him shut up. And it makes it so much better. He's even, honestly, when he's silent, he's actually kind of a cool antagonist.
I think more games should have a remove Troy Baker mod.
Yeah, like they're on the first attack on the Citadel that Cerberus does in the third game. I think a part of that mod is it changed because Kai Lang shows up to like stab your police car or your police cruiser, right? The one
Yeah.
you're riding in.
Yep.
It replaces that with a regular Cerberus assassin because that was supposed to be how they introduced that enemy. Was they have it jump out and stab it, and then that also introduces the sniper enemy because they're the driver. But they wanted Kai Lang to feel cooler, so they kind of shoehorned him into that scene.
Okay, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say a thing, and I'm gonna throw out the obligatory. I'm gonna talk about spoilers in anything we talk about. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, probably should have talked about spoilers a little bit there. My bad.
Deal with that how you will, I guess. Kai Lang gets beat up by a terminally ill man. He is the least threatening motherfucker in this trilogy.
Yeah, like literally the Krell or not Krell. What the fuck is that
The
species called?
the Drell
Drell. Drell. That's what it was. The Drell equivalent of a like terminally ill cancer patient beat his shit in.
like rocked his shit. It's
How
his
like
how,
if you're trying to introduce a compelling antagonist, that is not how you do it, dog.
but
Like
it does make your friend look really fucking cool.
it does make him look really cool. That's fair.
And you know what?
Ah,
I'll take making Thane look cool over making Kai Lang look threatening any day, because Kai Lang's a little bitch.
my boy deserved better, man. He deserves so much better.
Pour one out for the homie.
Uh,
So, a slightly related question. When was the first time
sure.
you played Mass Effect?
First time I played Mass Effect, was I want to say it was the summer going into college, I think.
Okay, so fairly recently, all things considered.
No, 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 summer before going into senior year. Yeah, of high school to clarify. That was the first time I played Mass Effect because I think I saw it on a sale and I was like, man, I've been wanting to play this for ages, but I'd never had like I just kept forgetting to. And I picked it up and I played it through and I was like, damn, that was fun. Then I played it through again. I was like, man, that's so much better the second time. And then I was nonstop advertising it to my friends, like, "Hey, you guys should play this. It's really fun." I just don't like. I trust me. The third game will end in a satisfactory way. I promise. Please just play through the games.
Um,
Uh,
I had the great experience. I played it in 2007. Then I waited until 2010 to play the second game. Then I waited until 2012 to play the third game, and then I did that like 8 more times. And then the remaster trilogy came out, and I did that like 4 times, and I almost have the platinum trophy in it.
yeah, I didn't play it until the remastered came out.
Oh
Uh,
man, I gotta tell you, that series is real wild when you have like a 3 year gap between sequels, and you're like, I don't know what the
oh,
fuck
I
is even
bet.
going on here.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah. You
mean the
ever?
consequences of my actions? I don't remember my actions.
Yeah, that was one thing I think. I feel I need to look up if it's a thing. But I feel like more games should have that, where like your actions in the previous game affect the next game.
It's really cool. Uh,
I'm not sure if it's like the Nemesis system where they patented it, but like that would be really really cool.
no, it's not like a Bioware. I don't think Bioware owns that shit. I just think it's really really hard and intensive to pull off, and so not very many studios can effectively do that. I mean,
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
to essentially build entire scenes multiple times
right,
if you
yeah,
want to have any impact. Because if it's just cookie cutter and you can drop and place different things in there, then the effects aren't that different. So
yeah, and I think the issue with doing like save transfers between games is it's really hard to get right because I know some oh, I forget what game it was, but there was this one game where you import your save file and it really, I'll be honest, it doesn't affect anything. Like I think it's a hard line to find between like having to develop four separate games for each like potential choice outcome you have, or just having the same game with slightly different dialogue, which is just boring.
I really like the way Dragon Age Inquisition did it, and then that series decided that saving your choices doesn't matter anymore. So I'm just gonna go die, I guess.
Yeah, I've never played Dragon Age actually. I've been
Uh,
meaning to, but like I never got around to it.
I like the first 3 ones a lot, but the first one into the second one, it doesn't really like your choices don't matter that much. But carrying that save file into the third one, they don't even actually have you carry your save exactly. They have you upload like they call it a world state where
Uh,
they take your save file and reflect your choices, and you can go through and modify ones that didn't transfer properly or you just didn't want to keep that way. And then it
right.
carries over into the third game. And while it doesn't affect the outcome of the game too much, it does change a lot of details, and certain characters will or won't show up, and it's just cool.
Yeah. I remember the game I was thinking of, Wolfenstein. The newer Wolfenstein series, they have a quote unquote save import
Oh
where
yeah,
it's I wouldn't mind it if it had like any effect on the game itself, but really it's just who is your sidekick through the games. And the sidekick really, I mean, they have good dialogue, but like aside from that,
I didn't even realize they had a save transfer because every time I play it, I just like the first and the second, like the New Order and New Colossus. I thought it just made you remake the choice. I didn't realize you could transfer that over.
yeah, no, and if I recall, isn't it like I haven't played some of the later ones, but if I recall, isn't literally the only choice that gets carried over is who you save at the beginning of the first one?
Like I said, I don't know because I just started a fresh file and the game just lets you remake the choice anyways. It says who did you save, and that's the only thing it has you choose. So carrying
Yeah,
over a save file is just irrelevant anyways because the only choice is one that the game just offers you to make at the start of the game.
yeah, it's.
I played the first
I
one
feel like
on PC and I played the second one on console because my computer is a piece of shit.
right. Yeah, I think that was one. I see what they were trying to do. They were trying to make it like, oh, your choices are really impactful, but like, damn, I sure am still just going to the same places and doing the same things regardless. Like,
At least in the first game, there's a couple of different characters who show up, but in the second one, it's literally just are you hanging out with Scottish guy or drug guy?
Wyatt. Yeah. And I always saved the younger guy, Wyatt. Uh, my first time playing through, I saved the Scottish guy because I forget my reasoning exactly, but
Scotland's better.
I feel like in a way they almost punish you for making like for choosing the old Scottish guy because like they both have survivor's guilt, which I think is really well done. But the Scottish guy's one is just like he's so much more angry at you.
Well, he's Scottish.
I mean, yeah, that's fair, but like, I always felt like the game was just punishing you for making that choice in a way.
I don't know. At least in regards to the second one, I feel like, and I haven't played the second one with the Scottish guy. I've only done the second one with Wyatt, but
Right.
Wyatt's such a non-presence in the second game that I was kind of unsure why I even made the choice.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know if that's true for whatever his name is, but
yeah. I also never went through the second game with him because after I played the first one, I was like, man, I'm just gonna save Wyatt because he was so adamant that that would be the right choice. Let's see if it actually was. And yeah, it
uh,
kind of was.
I don't
Uh,
know. Bro just kind of spends most of the second game off screen, drugged out of his mind, shows up for like two missions and does like one dramatic last stand at the end of the game and doesn't even die. So it's like, why did I
yeah,
why did I care?
exactly.
My pregnant wife did more. What the fuck?
Honestly, the paraplegic old soldier lady did more.
Well, she had more impact on the story at least.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm weird about those two games anyways because the New Order is really really good and the new Colossus is also pretty good, but not in a way that I like. I don't know. It's complicated. It's like
yeah.
I think it's good, but it could have been so much better, and I think a lot of the choices it made really weird and set up things that it doesn't pay off, and I'm not convinced there's going to be a third one at this point because whoo, that other spin-off was really bad.
Yeah, the one with his kids.
Weird choice, by the way. Set up a third game and then skip entirely to like 20 years later and say whatever happens in the third game doesn't matter
The
now because this is gonna
yeah,
happen.
the most horrendous choice they made was killing Hitler off screen.
Honestly,
Like, brother, that should have been a whole quest, like a whole storyline in the third game. Why did you just have that happen off screen?
yeah. Like the second one's just fine, but it sets up so much shit that I just know at this point they're never gonna pay off. It's like
Yeah,
why?
I want to see it come to fruition, but at the same time, I know that Bethesda has other cash cows at this point. They have really no reason to go back to Wolfenstein.
I'm just guaranteed that I'd be disappointed.
Yeah,
I don't see a way they can follow that up at this point after making a spin-off set in the future to a degree where nothing that happens in the third game can be surprising now and it pay off because the first two games were kind of banking on being uh kind of like unpredictable and shocking kind of, and you can't do that now.
right, because we know everything that happens.
There's no tension, and the tension was what kind of like tension was the core of that story working.
Yeah,
What else have I been playing? What else? I played the Oblivion remaster for a while.
yeah. I've been playing some of that too.
Mostly just to make my funny cat man.
Yeah, I made my Argonian chick, Spider. For I guess no one who watches this will probably know what that is. We're playing a Elder Scrolls tabletop game, and both of us made our characters in that game in the Oblivion remaster.
Even though the timeline does not add up, I'm not worried about that.
It's fine. Don't
the
worry
the
about it.
detail does not matter.
Yeah, yeah. I've been having a good time with it. The Oblivion was actually the first like proper game that I ever played. Uh,
It's the first rated M game I ever bought of my own money.
right, right. Yeah, it feels like Oblivion just with better
Yeah,
graphics.
it's literally the same game. I'm almost positive I could go drop 800 cabbages down the coast of Cyrodiil and nothing would and it would work the exact same way.
Yeah, I think probably my favorite part. I was playing when my brother was sitting next to me while I was playing it, and he pointed out that in the dialogue, and I hadn't noticed this, but I can't unsee it now. In the dialogue with the humanoid characters, like if they don't have a beard, it's pretty easy to miss if they have a beard or like their Khajiit or whatever. But the chin of the characters moves like their mouth does. Like it shrinks and grows up and down as they're talking.
The only thing I don't really care for about the graphics is the fact that all the character models look like clay dolls, like claymation.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm
Yeah,
watching a fucking like a old like fantasy movie from like the 50s where they just claymated every monster.
right.
It's like why do you guys look like that? But the environments are fucking beautiful. So
Oh, the environments are fantastic. I will say it's a little bit uncanny valley. I'll give you that. But like, I can forgive it because like it's better than the old one.
Oh, it's the that's just the way to play that game at this point because now I can look at things and not laugh. I can pretend to take things seriously at least.
Yeah, yeah, and I think one of the things I really enjoy is the combat changes because it's still the same basic system, but it doesn't just feel like I'm smacking people with a rubber noodle now.
I've been doing magic the entire playthrough, so I have no idea what melee combat really feels like because I'm just like
Right.
unarmed in magic because that was the closest way I could approximate a fucking artificer. I guess I don't know. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I as Spider is a rogue, I've been doing the patent pended stealth archer. Uh it's so I'll put it this way. Did you play did you ever use melee in the original Oblivion?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so you know how it always felt like you'd be swinging at them and they'd kind of like they'd make a pain sound, but they wouldn't react otherwise, and they just keep coming at you.
Yeah, there's no feedback whatsoever.
There's a lot more feedback, and it's not just the same animation over and over and over. It's like you have different attack patterns, and they don't really affect the gameplay much, but like it looks nicer at least. And the enemies actually like recoil if you hit them with a heavy attack, and they'll like take damage and like flinch in the direction that you're hitting them, and it's a lot nicer.
It is just a solid remake all around. I don't even have that much to say about it in particular, but that isn't just me talking about Oblivion because it's like
Yeah.
75% exactly the same, 20% mostly the same, and then just a little bit different.
Yeah, from what I've heard, actually the it's like some kind of like game engine homunculus,
Yeah,
wherein
it's
it's like
the same
there's
code stapled onto Unreal 5 or some shit like that.
as far as I'm aware, the creation engine's still there actually. It's it's like the creation engine that they just like poured Unreal 5 over,
They just oh god. I'm
which
sur-
is why you have some of those weird animation glitches, like the characters' chins moving when they're talking.
I'm surprised the game even functions cuz that's like
It's some black magic, man. I don't
uh,
know how they do it.
diabolical. But I can give Oblivion one thing always. It's better than Skyrim.
True. Yeah, that's just
Low
kind of objectively true.
low bar, but it clears.
Yep. I gotta say also, it's kind of hysterical to me how different the game treats the protagonists. Like in the first in Oblivion, right? You're like basically a nobody. Your only claim to fame is that the Emperor dreamed about you,
You're just some
and
guy, yeah.
you're just a dude, and like you become the savior of the whole place. Like the guards respect you. The characters actually react to your fame. And then in Skyrim, you're some like prophecy-born demigod,
Uh,
and you still even after killing Alduin and like all these people, you still get shit talked by John Joe Gardman.
oh, it's crazy because like Skyrim's story just spends its entire time glazing you, but all the NPCs couldn't give half a shit.
Right, yeah. And like most of the time, like whenever the characters do acknowledge it, the biggest one that I can remember is the when you try to start the vampire quest line. Uh I'm pretty sure if you haven't complete because I always go to that one after having completed the main story. So I might be wrong on this, but I've heard that like from a friend of mine, if you haven't killed Alduin yet, and you tell the guy, "Hey, I'm the Dragonborn. You should let me in," he'll say, "Aren't you supposed to go kill Alduin? Get back to that, you lazy fuck."
uh,
Like that's one of the only times that I think they openly acknowledge your presence as like a demigod.
my man, the thing about that story that pisses me off to this day. So near the tail end of all that stuff, it might even be after the actual main plot, but there's a bit where the blades or whatever the fuck they are in that game want you to go kill good guy dragon whose name I can't pronounce because I'm dumb.
Arthanax,
Yeah,
Arthanax,
that's
yeah,
the guy.
yeah,
And it's like that's not a problem in and of itself that they want me to do that. The problem is that they openly defy me when I say no, you're dumb, and then won't let
yeah,
me hang out with them anymore. It's like motherfuckers, do you know who I am?
yeah.
And then they're both essential, so I don't have any option to kill them instead.
Probably my biggest gripe with like my biggest and like to this day gripe with the Elder Scrolls games. I love the universe. Please, Fallout New Vegas did it. Let me kill the essential NPCs. I don't just let me kill them,
I
please.
I I want them all to die. There's every Elder Scrolls game after Morrowind is in this cool thing where its lore is so fucking cool and the actual stories don't live up to it whatsoever.
Yeah, and how the Thuum kind of got butchered in in the Skyrim lore,
Or the
like
fact that
with
or the
the
fact
game
that
proper.
Cyrodiil isn't a fucking jungle. What the hell?
Yeah, uh, it's. I feel like part of me is interested to see Elder Scrolls 6. Almost, it's like a car crash. Like I want to see it so I can see what a disaster it's gonna be because I know damn well I'm gonna buy it and play it
Oh,
anyway.
I'm playing. I'm probably gonna be pissed off the entire time, but I'm gonna play it.
Yeah, yeah, that's. But at the same time, like I've heard that when Microsoft was doing the whole Monopoly trial, they had to release some documents, and in that it included the fact that hey, they were working on an Oblivion remaster, which obviously they were. One of the other things listed in that same document was a Fallout 3 remaster, and I believe it mentions something about. I'd have to look it up to verify, but there was a couple of other past Bethesda games that they were also going to be remastering. And if they remaster Morrowind with the same graphics level as the Oblivion remaster, I might shit.
I
Like that.
I will definitively shit my pants. No question
That
about
would
it.
be fantastic.
That is all I want in my life, to be honest. Um, my prediction for the Elder Scrolls 6 is that it's gonna be what the fuck is that? I can't remember the name of the game. They released that fucking space game.
Starfield.
Sorry, it's gonna be like Starfield but with swords, which is the exact opposite of what everyone called Fallout 3. So
Wait, so it's going to be Starfield with swords. Does that make it Skyrim in space, but not in space?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And but what all I really mean is that I think it's just gonna be, it's gonna look and play and feel very similar to that. Uh, and that's not really a good thing in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, actually, from what I've heard, and I haven't played Starfield myself, so take it with a grain of salt. But from what I've heard, the DLC that came out for Starfield was much more a return to form for Bethesda in that it wasn't an open world. Well, like it wasn't. I mean, it was kind of open world, but it was more like Skyrim open world, where it was kind of linear. It wasn't the open world like they were trying to do, where it was like a No Man's Sky type open world. Is what I mean. Uh, and from what I've heard, that one was way better accepted than the game itself, which is ironic as hell to me, given that you literally kind of just get the Thuum. Uh,
I just don't like the way that game feels. Like it does not feel good. It feels
yeah,
it feels floaty, and the gunplay is awkward, and the dialogue is dull and one-dimensional, even by Bethesda standards.
yeah, yeah. I'm hopeful that they took Starfield as a learning opportunity and not a hey, we can milk our audience for cash with a trash game.
Uh,
And then also they take the Oblivion remaster as like, hey, people actually really like this old formula. Maybe we should reuse this.
I just really expect Elder Scrolls 6 to not feel good. Like I'm sure it'll be like I don't really think Skyrim feels that good to play either. To be fair, like that game has got the opposite problem where it's too weighty and too heavy, and nothing feels good.
Yeah, I I find it hilarious that like they took the modders will fix the game so much to heart that like that almost feels like their business model.
Yeah,
And I mean,
it's
they're right. Modders will fix it, but like, damn, maybe you should like do
the
that yourself.
the problem isn't that modders will fix it, because that always meant to me that they should do their best they can to make the game as solid as possible. But when you're making a game that large, there's just no way nothing's like something's gonna happen, right? Something's gonna slip through the
Right.
cracks, and that is where the modders have to come in. Because I mean, like it's a fine line between excusing lazy, but also you have to realize that that much content in one game, unless you want the horrific levels of crunch that happen, you gotta just accept that like something's not gonna be right. There's gonna be a mistake somewhere, a bug or something.
Yeah, yeah. That reminds me. Recently, another game that I've kind of been dabbling in is I've been dabbling getting back into the 40K Rogue Trader game.
Hell yeah.
Um, and I played it through almost all the way through a while back, and then I stopped playing because I had a glitch that like basically locked me out of a whole character storyline. and it was a glitch because I looked back through and I did everything I had to do to like unlock that storyline. Uh, and for a while I was really pissed off about it because like, damn, that was 40 hours of gameplay just down the drain basically. Uh, and then I realized, kind of like you're saying, this is a game that unironically takes like 80 to 90 hours to play all the way through, and like I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a small dev team. Like, Owlcat is not a Bethesda-sized studio, so there's gonna be stuff like that that just slips through the cracks because you can't QA a whole game like that. Especially if the game is so branching, because I mean, there's so many like different routes you can take in that game.
I really should play that. It's especially since Brandon's running a Rogue Trader game for our Tuesday group. Shout out to Brandon.
Oh, dude, that sounds so fire. Yeah.
But I know so little about that portion of that universe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. 40K is my jam. I
Oh,
know
I know,
too
buddy.
much about that universe. Yeah, yeah. When we play Space Marine 2, he's like,
Hold
hey,
on. Hold
what's this mean? Like, what they said
on.
this thing. What does that mean? Then I give
What's
him a 40-minute lore
what's
dump.
what's going on over here? I've got like the casual mind, like the casual knowledge of that universe, where I just kind of know random, like typical information, and then anything lore heavy happens, and I'm like, hey, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
What does that mean? And then it's a problem. But yeah, I think the thing I like about Rogue Trader is like you don't have to know anything about 40K to get into it because they have a built-in like in the dialogue when things are happening, you can mouse over you can mouse over terms and it'll explain what it is.
Oh yeah, no,
Um,
the reason I haven't played it so far is it's just such a big fucking game. It's kind of intimidating.
it is, yeah. And I won't lie to you. It's it's crunchy. The system is crunchy. You have to look at a lot of numbers to get combat stuff. Uh, it's not quite as crunchy as Wrath of the Righteous, which is a Pathfinder game by Owlcat,
Oh, it's the same
but
dev team.
it's the same dev team. Yeah, Owlcat makes a lot of games like that, CRPGs. Uh, but it's pretty crunchy. I'm not gonna lie to you. Uh, I yeah, I remember I was playing through it on normal, and I got to a certain point that I'm not gonna say because you haven't played it yet. But I got to a certain point in the story, and I've been kind of cruising through the combat. Like I was pretty good at it. You know, we were chunking through the enemies, and then there was this one combat that like the difficulty feels like I suddenly switched to the highest difficulty, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out why. And I asked a friend of mine who's played pretty much all the Owlcat games, and she said that yeah, no, that's just kind of expected. Like Owlcat, excuse me, Owlcat has a theme of there'll just be a random difficulty spike like towards the middle end of the game. Uh, and I mean it's fair because you know you're also getting a power spike, but like damn, I sure did go from wiping the floor to getting wiped with the to being wiped along the floor like instantly.
CRPG wise, I've finally been trying to finish fucking Baldur's Gate 3.
I've been seeing that. Yeah, how's that been going?
You know what? So my first time I tried to play through it. It took me about a year to get to Act 2.
Uh,
I'm already in Act 2, and I've only been playing for a couple weeks, so doing all
yeah,
right.
solid.
Uh, so the first time I really, really, really butchered character creation, like horrendously, like so bad that you would think that I don't play tabletop games, but you know I play tabletop games.
I'm aware you play tabletop games. That's how we met. Yeah.
So it's like, how did I, how, how did I make a character this badly? Like it was, my buddy Harold looked at it and was like, "What the fuck did you do?" He's like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
So I'm doing another playthrough and I'm just taking easy mode. I just made a paladin.
Solid. Yeah. I usually play through as a barbarian. Uh, I think my favorite
Nice.
playthrough that I've done was a barbarian Good Alliance Dirge run.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'm doing differently is I'm playing the Dark Urge. I haven't done that.
Dark Urge is so fun. It's such a good story. Yeah, I want to talk more about it, but I don't want to spoil stuff for you because you've never gotten that
Yeah,
far.
yeah. This will be why I just touch it every time we do this, probably.
Yeah, yeah. I I've played through Baldur's Gate a few times. It's not my
uh,
favorite game. I think Mass Effect still holds that for me, just because I prefer sci-fi in general. But
it's up there.
it's up there. It's definitely up there. I think
Easily the
it's
game of the year it came out.
oh easily. Yeah, I think my top three, and I'm gonna lump Mass Effect as all one game because it kind of
It
is.
just is 100%.
Mass Effect is my top game. I think Baldur's Gate and Divinity: Original Sin 2 are kind of a close tie for second.
I should probably finish those at some point too.
Yeah, Divinity 2, it was that was my first experience with like a real proper top-down RPG. Uh, and I had a lot of fun with it. It's it's kind of like a bridge between CRPGs and like a more Baldur's Gate style RPG. Uh, in that it has its crunch, but it's not Pathfinder level crunchy. First Pathfinder First Edition to clarify, because Second
I
Edition is actually pretty good about that. Uh,
don't do math, man.
oh man, it's pretty brutal.
I've played first
Uh,
edition before. It's wild.
yeah, First Edition's it has a weird place in my mind because like I like that it gives you the ability to do some really cool customization stuff. Like I once made a character who was based off of Saltspire from Vermintide, and his whole thing was as long as through a bunch of feats that I took, as long as I killed at least one enemy on my turn, I would theoretically never stop cleaving.
Man, you just unlocked some like repressed memories of playing Vermintide and just everyone running around shouting Sigmar at each other in that fucked up voice.
Yeah, yeah. I used to be able to do a really, really good Saltspire voice, and then I had my voice drop, but I can't do that anymore.
Bro hit
Uh,
puberty.
uh, but Vermintide, it's a fun ass game. I like that.
Ah,
I haven't
it's
played it in
very good.
a while because I mean, it just kind of. I'll be real. It's a fun game, but it's the same game.
Very
Uh,
very good.
yeah, Saltspire is a fun character. I like that guy.
He was very funny. We would just run around and every time he'd shout about Sigmar, everyone would just pipe up and shout Sigmar back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I really like horde like that kind of linear horde shooter. I loved Darktide. Uh,
Dark Tide's
after
awesome.
it got after
Dark,
it got better.
Dark Tide after the first year was great.
Yeah, yeah. Darktide after it got better is a good game.
I grew up playing Left 4 Dead, so that kind of horde shooter shit was my jam.
Yeah, yeah. Horde shooters like that are a lot of fun.
Um, Last thing I have on the play like things I've been playing list that I can think of is
Uh,
Claire Obscure Expedition 33 French
I've
Persona.
been yeah, I've been seeing a lot about that. I've been meaning to pick it up. There's some really funny characters that I've seen.
It's it's really funny and there's a lot of good jokes. It's also heart wrenching and kind of kicking my ass.
In the
It
emotional sense or in the gameplay sense?
mostly emotional sense. It's standard like JRPG style gameplay. So any moment that's really difficult, I just go beat up some enemies for like half an hour and I roll back up and it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
But like the storytelling, there's some really emotional beats and it's like, wow, this hurts. Fuck you, French people.
You French people. Yeah, I know next to nothing about it, which is something I'm trying to maintain.
Absolutely going blind. It's crazy.
I will say the few characters that I do know about, there's Eski.
That's my guy.
I've seen some pretty funny quotes from that guy. I've also seen some pretty good stuff from I think it's like Monoko.
I must be from a part of the game I'm not at yet.
Hang on, let me see if I'm getting his name right. But yeah, Monoko. I know all I know about him is a YouTube video that a friend sent me. And
Yeah.
it's like a YouTube short with some of his quotes.
Uh-huh.
The dude's fucking hysterical. Love that guy.
There's some really funny dialogue. Like I didn't. The game kind of has this look where you think it's just gonna be like, the heavier emotions the whole way through, but there's some really funny comedy in there, which is really
Yeah.
really nice. But the emotional beats hit like crazy. I only played the game because an actor I like is in it,
Uh,
and I don't regret anything. Given that I didn't pay for it because I just have Xbox Game Pass. It was great.
Yeah, I've been meaning to pick it up. It does look really good. I I really, I'll be honest. I just really want to get to Monaco. The fuckers, he seems like he's funny, and he's the kind of funny that fits with the story. Like he's not just there for like haha funny. Like he fits the aesthetic.
Uh, I I think one of the bits of praise I can give a lot of the comedy is that it is all it all makes sense in the context of the world for the most part. There's nothing in there where I'm like, this is just for the sake of a joke. Like the funniest uh there's this set of creatures in the game. You've probably if you've seen Esky, you know what I'm talking about. Those guys. And their whole characterization is just really funny, but it's just how they're characterized in universe. So they're that way in the universe, and everyone's like, these guys are fucking weird.
Yeah, yeah. There's he's very similar to that. I'll try not to say too much so I don't spoil you or myself because I don't want to look that up. But near as I can tell, Monaco's part of a like a species or like a group or whatever the fuck that really loves fighting.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and there's this one dialogue he has where it's very reminiscent of that vine of the villain who's also a good dad.
Bowser, Bowser core.
Yeah, where he's like he's fighting and then like I think it's either his kid or like some little version of his species runs up. And he's like, not now, not now. I'm very busy beating up strangers, and it's just hysterical. I really want to play that game.
It's so good. I highly recommend it. I no life date for like 3 days, which is crazy because I don't know life anything at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I might pick it up at some point, but
It's
we'll
also
we'll see.
one of those things where it's only $50, so it's cheap
Yeah,
by these days
yeah.
standards.
Big win for modern gaming. Gotta love it.
Big win. Beautiful game, great cast, great gameplay, and it's $50. More of that, please.
Honestly, yeah.
More of that. Anything else you've been playing or watching or anything like that?
Uh, not a whole lot else. I mean, I've been playing some of a game called Foxhole, kind of on and off.
Foxhole,
That's it's a persistent war simulator. It's like a war MMO almost.
like Arma-esque, or
Uh, kind of. It's isometric,
okay,
kind of like Zomboid.
okay,
Uh, and the whole idea is that there's two sides. There's the Wardens and the Colonials, and the war is always going on, like constantly,
okay,
and it's pretty typical. You're trying to take over the enemy's territory, but the thing that really sets it apart is that everything you use, everything you fight in and around, is player made.
okay,
So, like every gun you use, every tank you drive, every artillery shell, all of it is made by a person.
okay.
So there's entire groups of people whose whole like the whole thing they do is they sit in the back line and they make weapons.
Got the labor right
And
there.
yeah, and like there's I play the wardens mostly. It's really funny because I've heard the warden backline compared to some mix of like Crusader Kings and like the cartels.
Okay,
Because like there's whole factions of like, hey, don't touch my stuff, and then you touch their stuff and they fucking execute you. Uh, and there's like laws and like all that jazz, and all of it's player integrated, and it's just really well done, really fun. Um, and it's the kind of game where you're like, I'll hop on for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, like in between stuff, and I'll just run around for a little bit, have some fun, and then I'll hop back off. And I know there are some people who know life it. Like I've got a buddy who's spent like I think yesterday he had like 11 hours on the game, which is insane, given that he has a job. Um, but yeah, I mean it's a pretty fun game just to kind of hop around in. And the in one of the recent updates they added VoIP.
oh hell yeah.
Uh, and I gotta tell you, I've never had more fun than so when you down someone, because sometimes you'll just kill them, but sometimes you can also just down them. You can pick them up, and the idea is you pick them up, it pauses their death timer, and then you can take them to a backline to get them healed up. Uh, but you can also pick up enemies,
Oh no, you got POWs
and
back there.
so Yeah, you could take POWs, and one of my favorite things that I did is I killed this medic, and I picked him up because I felt bad because I just tossed a grenade into his trench and then he got downed. And I picked him up and I brought him back to his back line. And like all of like the guy who was like, "Hey guys, don't shoot this guy, don't shoot this guy. He's bringing me back to get healed." And the community in general is just like really chill. For the most part, there's obviously standouts, but
Oh sure.
like you can just kind of do that stuff. Like, oh hey, yeah, this guy, he's just bringing me back to the back line. Don't mind the fact he's an enemy. Don't shoot him. And then they'd like after I dropped him off, they just let me walk back to my lines.
Fair enough. Yeah, you bringing up VoIP, I guess it would be a shame for me not to mention all the repo we've been playing.
Yeah, yeah, repo. That is that's a game.
That's a game and a half. Me, you, and our other two buddies, just a fucking menace.
Yeah, it feels honestly, it feels like I guess the best way I can compare it is like it's Lethal Company if it wasn't just kind of boring.
Lethal Company if you didn't need mods, yeah.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, Lethal Company was a fine game. It was fun for like a couple of weeks, but like man, after those weeks, there's just really nothing to do. But yeah, Lethal Company's or not
Uh,
Lethal Company. God, Repo
repo,
is
yeah.
it's that's a fun ass game.
It adds enough interactivity that like there's other shit. Like I can still laugh at ragdoll at enemies or getting blown across the room by ET the extraterrestrial or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard I haven't actually messed around with it in a little bit, but I've heard that in the update that's coming out soon, they like you can have expressions, like you can change your expression on your
Oh no.
character.
Oh boy. The text to
Yeah,
speech in that game, we're
hysterical. I
some
love that they don't have a
messages.
filter on it. As much of a menace as it is, I love that there's no filter.
I will never forget the moment me, you, Harold, and our other buddy Joe were playing, and fucking gun the deaf gun or the blind gun guy rolls up, and one of you gets shot, and then Harold types something in chat, and I'm trying not to laugh so I don't get shot, and then he gets shot, and I start fucking dying.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts of it is like I remember one time I was the last one alive. We were all playing, and I was trying so hard to clutch up, and I didn't realize that the text to speech was also audible to the bad guys. And so I was just like hiding under a table from the shotgun guy, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna say something funny because he can't hear the text to speech." And I typed out in the TTS, it's like, "Go somewhere, weirdo." And then I got as far as "go somewhere," and then he fucking blasted me.
Yeah, that guy's ruthless, dude.
He is
He fears no man. No, it's
the shotgun, and like the idea of it reminds me of when I played Alien Isolation. Like you have to stay quiet, and that's such an underutilized game thing for horror games, I think, because it makes you feel so much more like in the game. It's so much more immersive.
it's crazy in Repo's case. 'Cause it's not like trying to be quiet because you're like freaking out necessarily. It's trying to be quiet because you're trying not to laugh because your buddy just got blasted after saying the stupidest shit you ever heard in your life.
Yeah, I remember at one point I was playing with some other guys, and we were all hiding from the shotgun guy, and this other guy who had been looting a different part of the facility, he like runs in and is like, "Hey guys, where are you?" And the guy just snaps to it and blows his head off. And all of us are just trying,
Trying
like,
not
we're
to
trying
chuckle.
so hard not to just fucking die of laughter.
Yeah, it's it's special. It's definitely special.
I think
I
the
kind of wondered if it was gonna die out, but we've been going back to it off and on for weeks now. So
yeah, yeah, and man, the worst thing, I don't think any of y'all like our group has it, but one of the guys in the other group has the loudest mechanical keyboard I've ever heard. To the point that if we know there's a shotgun guy, we all just send him off to another part of the map because we don't want to be near him. Because
get
we know damn well that
get
guy's
banished to the keyboard dimension.
honestly, like if he's there, we know damn well we're not hiding. Uh,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
good time.
game fun.
Game fun. All right. Well, now that we've first hour of catching up on whatever we've been playing, let me go. Let me go pull up the list. I fuck. I There it is. I think three of those tie into each other, so I'm gonna start with the and I quote "be a boomer about game mechanics" conversation
Uh-huh.
because I think that's the most excuse me most individualized one there, which is not my idea. Thank you, people I know, for letting me steal their ideas.
Always a good thing.
Not me hopping into the chat to say, "Hey guys, I'm fishing for ideas. What you got?" Uh,
Hey, it works.
which the exact, uh, I guess the exact deal there was just things that we are, well, yeah, we. But I think we're gonna have a different definition of older game here, so bear with me. Um, things that we think that older games did a lot better that a lot of newer games don't do very well. And obviously that's generalized and not necessarily a statement of fact on everything that comes out now, but generally
Yeah,
speaking.
because obviously there are good games that come out, like we were just talking about, but like, yeah, there's definitely differences.
So, but yeah, I think our definitions of older are probably
Yeah, they might be a little bit different,
be
yeah.
a little bit different. um, older
Yeah, I mean, I
games
could
pop off.
start off a little bit. I think one of the things that I've been missing most in a lot of games is like I've noticed that a lot of games nowadays feel very simplified, very streamlined. Um, and in some ways that's a good thing because it means that more people can play it. But like at the same time, games like Morrowind or even Oblivion to a degree, like they had a lot of complication and like you had to think if you were going to play that game. And I like that because like it gets you a lot more engaged. Like Morrowind, you don't have map markers, or like Oblivion. And granted, Oblivion is, I don't want to say panders, that's the wrong word. Simplifies. That's what I was looking for. Simplifies the game loop a little bit, but like there's still a lot of depth to it. Like you can craft your own spells. You can like make magic items in if I recall correctly. Uh, like I don't like how a lot of games are so much more simplified. They're very streamlined. It's like you feel like you're in an on-rails shooter the whole time almost.
No, everything's so simple. Yeah, there's it's so hard to find things with depth, like actual depth. It's a little sad actually.
Yeah, it's part of the reason that games like Clair Obscur or Cyberpunk, like this part of the reason those stand out is because they have that depth and that like you don't have to engage with the depth, which I think that's kind of a good middle line is like it's there and if you engage in it you'll have a better time, but you don't have to engage with
In Cyberpunk's case, it's so easy not to engage with it. It's kind of funny actually. that
it. Yeah, yeah.
that
Like
game's kind of cakewalk to be honest.
yeah, I think it's a hard line to find because I think there is a point when it's just not worth it. Like it's too much complication. Sometimes you just want to play a video game without looking at a spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm a big Paradox gamer. I like a lot of Paradox games.
Sorry for your wallet.
Yeah. Well, thankfully I have friends who are who have bought the DLC, so I don't have to do that.
Sorry, I'm
Uh,
sorry for their wallet.
I'm also sorry for their wallet. But like there's some of those games like Europa Universalis. That game is a spreadsheet. Like and Victoria 3. Victoria, well, 2 and 3. 2 is the worst one. But Victoria 2, that game literally feels like I'm playing like Excel spreadsheets. Like I appreciate complication and detail, but brother, I don't want to have to take an economics class to play my video game. And it's a hard line to find because you know on the one hand you've got the newer COD games that are just an on-rail shooter, but like not. They try to be not. Uh,
I'll still go to bat
and
for the first Modern Warfare remake.
yeah, that's fair. I think a lot of the like I mean more like the like Black Ops 6. That game, putting aside the scummy marketing tactics, putting aside the like other problems with it, it's just kind of the like it feels like an on-rails shooter.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it's a hard line to find between that and spreadsheet simulator, and I think a lot of older games like Morrowind and stuff like that, they did a really good job of that because it's like, I mean, it feels well balanced in that regard.
Morrowind is just a stand-up example of one of my favorite things with like I don't know what you want to call them, like action RPGs or whatever you want to call them.
Uh,
Uh, that game does so many things that I don't see anybody really do at any point. And some things I guess it does take a little too far, but I love that navigating that world is an actual thing you have to do. As much as I like the occasional map marker, I also like that the game just has literal in-world road signs that you have to follow to get to place to place.
yeah. One newer game that I've seen do that really well that I've been playing kind of off and on is a game called Voices of the Void.
Okay.
Uh, it's a little indie game. But it's basically, to summarize, you are on a satellite installation in the Swiss Alps. Uh, you're scanning signals in space. There's a bunch of really cool detailed stuff. But the thing that's specific to this conversation is there is a map that's in your base, like your home base. And so when you get your daily task, you have to go out and like verify these three satellites and also fix these ones. So you have to look at your map and plan out your route so that you can like optimize your time and still get back in time to like, do your daily work. And it's really fun because then it also throws into the mix like, oh yeah, and also there's this event that happens, so you can't go to this area because like there's an asteroid there or like something else happens, and so you have to plan around that. And it's done really well because it has a compass, like you can set your compass to track this thing, but you also just have to like plan out the right route so that you're not just going across the map 8 different times. And I really like that the it gives you that freedom, and it also, I mean, it doesn't stop you from just going all across the map, but it heavily encourages you to like plan properly.
I I I just think navigation in general is something that's like I don't know because if you go back old enough, navigation was really hard that way too. But there's a period of time where games found good ways to encourage like the world building to navigate you instead of relying on strictly speaking map markers. And I'm not necessarily talking about that whole yellow paint deal because I don't really give a shit about that. I think the games that mostly utilize that, I kind of get it. A lot of it has to do with environmental interaction that's harder to telegraph. But just in terms of like needing a big waypoint on my screen instead of the level design just encouraging me to go a certain direction is kind of a lost art.
Yeah. I think one really good kind of comparison that I can make of old and new games is the Half-Life games, Half-Life 1 and 2, and I mean Black Mesa too. Uh, it's they do a really good job of not explicitly pointing you in any one direction, uh, but like kind of encouraging you to go in a direction. I don't think that's necessarily what you're talking about with like the Morrowind stuff, but I think it's a kind of a good alternative in that it's technically they are linear games, right? But they still give you that option to explore and to find it yourself instead of pointing it with like in Cyberpunk you've got that little map trail that you follow to go wherever you're trying to go. Which again, that's not dogging on Cyberpunk. It's a fantastic game. I'm just saying in terms of exploration, it doesn't really it doesn't necessarily like it handholds you a lot when it comes to exploration. Uh, in a similar vein, Abiotic Factor. Uh,
Oh my god,
I,
I played that once. It was sorry.
it does a no, no, you're fine. It does a really good job of having that like kind of open world while also having linear progression. Uh, and it doesn't have really any handholding. Like it tells you, hey, you need to find this thing, and then it just says, go ham, find it. It doesn't give you map markers. You can ask NPCs, and they might give you some like helpful tips, but they're not going to give you like any kind of marker. You can look at your map and it's like, man, this sure is a map, but you have to figure out where you are on it, and you have to like do all this stuff. And it's a really well done, I think, exploration wherein you kind of like you have to look at the signs on the walls, like, okay, it says there's an elevator that way, my task says I need to find an elevator down to this place. Maybe that's where I go.
That's
Uh,
a game I really want to play more of because I played it once with my cousin and it was really fun, but I was dumb and didn't know what was going on.
yeah, I've played it through to where it's currently is, like where the update currently leaves off. Uh, and it's really, really well done. The progression is fantastic. It really makes you feel like, you'll get to a new area and it's like, okay, I can take out the enemies that are first here, but it's a real hassle. And then you get like to the end of that area or like the middle end of that area, and you get the gear and the equipment to upgrade. And you're like, man, I can take out these guys no problem. This is fantastic. And then you get to the next area, and it's just this cycle that repeats and repeats, but it doesn't ever get stale because there's new enemies with new mechanics, and the armor you get gives you like actual cool bonuses. Like there's this one armor set you get towards the end of the game that if you stay still and like or you crouch walk, you turn invisible, like completely, and enemies can't see you. Scares the shit out of your friends because it makes the same sound as an enemy that can turn invisible. And so at some points I'd be playing with a buddy and he ran this armor and he would walk into the base and he'd have the sound effects play when he turns on invisible because that's just what the armor does, and it would scare the shit out of me every time because it's the exact same sound effects as this one monster that likes to jump scare you. But yeah, the progression is really well done. It goes hand in hand with the exploration, I think.
I think that uh, the idea of just like that progression in terms of power, like for the player, is another thing that is really hard. I find a lot of games don't nail very well anymore. I find
Uh,
you either end up not feeling as powerful as you need to at all, or more often you end up feeling too powerful too quickly, and it kind of becomes like a, well, why is this even like, you know, why is this a challenge? What's going on here? Why is this an issue?
right,
Like you encounter a point where it's like, well, the main villain or main threat of this game shouldn't even be a problem for me at this point. Uh, which I think is kind of a byproduct of the open world thing we just went through for the last like 10 years.
right. Where you find all 500 pine cones, and so
And
now you can
now,
kill God.
now you're a god, and suddenly the main threat is just some dude, and you're just like, there's no build up to me getting to this
There's no
PowerPoint.
stakes,
Yeah,
right?
and I think just the period of time where a lot of games did either more like hub worlds or more linear things, and so your power progression was more scripted or more planned at least. Uh, really made things actually feel like there was a degree of tension to what you were building up to, and I think that's
Uh huh.
kind of become a lost art. Even in games I like, I find that to be a problem. Like the Spider-Man game on the PS4, the first one.
Uh
Uh, it's really easy to get really overpowered really quick in that game, as much as I like it.
yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Cyberpunk too. Like I love
Mm-hmm.
that game. Don't get me wrong, but it's it suffers from two things. I think one is what you're talking about with the like it's really easy to get like kind of overpowered, broken. Uh, to the point that the final boss just isn't a challenge. Uh, and at the same time, it's like the pacing is just. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. Storytelling, fantastic, but everybody's telling you like, hey, you have like weeks left to live. You need to get this shit done. And then there's zero stakes in it. You can spend like two
It's
months just wandering Night
it's
City.
it's so that game's pacing in general is so funny because the first act is really slow. You know, the first couple hours where you're leading up to that big
Uh,
heist and the plot really unveils. And then the second act is this constant roller coaster. And then the third act is like two missions.
yeah.
It's like, what's going on here? Uh, I think the DLC does that a lot better, just in general.
Oh, dude, the DLC is
Phantom
fantastic.
Liberty is so much better than the main game that it pisses me off because I think the main game's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. And I love how it makes everything so morally gray. Like there's better options undoubtedly, but like man, they all kind of suck.
Um, but yeah, I think just that byproduct, the open world thing, is it's hard to mask progression in a way where it's like I'm an actual character with a journey. I find, and I guess some of that is almost certainly just a byproduct of the kind of games I like to play, and open world ones not being high on that list.
Uh,
Like like a lot of the old Resident Evil games where progression and power scaling is very tightly controlled the entire time, and classic RPGs where uh, the only way to get blatantly overpowered is to waste hours of your time grinding. So it's kind of disincentivized to break progression that way.
Uh,
And then there's stuff like fucking Far Cry where it's like, yeah, go kill 800 deer and you're just good to go.
yeah, yeah. I think in a way, Cyberpunk does it well with the open world progression, where like some of the stuff that gets you the really powerful stuff, you just can't access until after the first act.
I I
Uh,
I think Cyberpunk at least gets away with it a little bit because while the gameplay progression isn't quite there, at least the story is built up in a way where no matter how powerful you are, you do not feel strong enough.
right. And I think the way that it suffers in the character progression standpoint, not necessarily the story, is like the first act I think is done really well. You can get strong, but you're still going to have trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second act, it goes on so long, and not in a bad way. It just there's a lot of story that you have the chance to go out and get all of these quests you've unlocked that will then make you so powerful that the third act is just kind of a breeze.
Uh, I also give that game a little bit of leeway in that just because the way the story's told, the third act being kind of a breeze almost makes sense.
Yeah, kind of.
And the second act being built up as essentially exploring every avenue to have an answer to this problem, that kind of works to me as well. Not quite one for one, but at least the idea of like at the end of it, you kind of know what you're gonna end up having to do, no matter how many other things you explore, no matter how many other avenues you explore. You know, the end of the day, that tower is probably gonna be the answer, even if the characters don't say it yet. And
Right,
it
right.
that the idea of like I'm doing all this other shit so I can go up to that tower, it makes sense to me. Uh, so that third act being those three missions that are kind of a cakewalk, you get to a point in the story where the characters are like, "Fuck it," and that attitude is exactly why it like works for me. Because if they're like, "Fuck it," then okay.
Yeah, yeah. The yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that you're powerful at the end because I mean, objectively, you are a powerful player in the universe by that point. Like if you do a lot of the side quests, like you are the merc in Night City. Uh,
Uh,
I just think like from a game design standpoint, it's weird to make the final boss, especially after he's been built up in the lore and like everything so much, just kind of a breeze, honestly.
yeah, I see it, and I kind of agree, but I also think it was probably just unavoidable for how that game is. Even,
Yeah,
and I mind you, I'm only approaching it from the context of 2.0, which is a completely different fucking game. Um, when they, the big update that changed everything about how that game works.
right, right.
There's no way you're going to be able to balance the final boss to account for every potential build and not have it more than likely just turn into that guy's kind of a cakewalk. They did buff him pretty considerably though.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
He's
Uh,
it is the fight now.
yeah, I think my only real issue with it is like after seeing Cyberpunk Edgerunners and like how much of a threat he was in that show, it's like, man, I see that, but like I don't at the same time, you know? Uh, I think I do agree though. It's almost impossible to balance that for every outcome. And there's always going to be, you know, the guy who makes his builds just kind of undescribably overpowered that you're never going to be able to balance for. But
um, I think that game. I think that maybe they tried to account for it the best they can just with the storytelling, and I think they
uh,
mostly succeed. Like, yeah, he's set up as a big threat, but you're also set up to be just kind of a bastard. You're
yeah,
you're a real fucking menace by the end of that game, and uh, it's not like perfect. The feeling is definitely still there, where it's like, why was this so easy? But it's not as bad to me as in something like I said Far Cry earlier, where
uh,
the threats in all the Far Cry games are basically just variations of political dissidence. So why are they set up as a threat when I've just been blowing up their entire fucking army for the last 6 hours with this grenade launcher I got by sneezing the wrong way in the first 5 hours of the game?
yeah, yeah. I think Far Cry 3 at least does it like explains it story wise pretty well. and that like legitimately you like your character is insane, like straight up goes to jail for being a serial killer, insane. Uh, but as far as gameplay goes, I do agree. Like it's like there's no real like threat. Like I've been killing hundreds of you guys. There's no point to throwing more at me.
And I just, I go back to, I'm trying to think of a good comparison to make because games just didn't work this way, when I was playing when I was growing up. Fuck.
Uh,
Uh, fuck. Like, I don't know. We'll go with Halo as an example point, right? Uh,
right.
you kind of got just a steady power set in that game. You are just the way you are, and the only thing that changes is the environment around you and the resources you have around you. So the power scale is you start out relatively capable, and things get tougher, and you kind of lose your sense of power as that game goes on, and it works fairly well. As opposed to now, where even Halo Infinite uh, is the exact opposite because there's so much other shit to do in that game. By the end of it, you haven't played that one, right? I don't know if you played any of them.
I've played all of them. Yeah.
Okay. By the end of Infinite, when you're facing this threat that is some indescribable, with like what is she, like, ancient
Ancient
pre-forerunner horror, and
ancient precursor. Yeah.
and I just roll up with like this stupid unique gun that I got from taking an FOB back, and I blast her in like 2 seconds, and the game's just done, and it's like
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
cutscene literally like 2 hours ago, she flung me through the fucking wall. What just happened?
Right. I think in a way, actually, the earlier Halo games, I'd argue they do have a character progression, but it's less like you're saying, like the environment gets tougher and your resources get more scarce, but at the same time, your skill grows,
Yeah,
and
there's this balance around
your skill,
player
yeah,
progression.
it's balanced around the player progressing instead of the character progressing, which I think I really like that design.
I think that was a more common. I think we've reached a point where tying the idea of a player into your balance isn't a thing, really, the same way. Because like I think a lot of games from when I was a kid, God help me, um, balanced that idea more in mind, where the character was kind of stagnant or maybe got some progression. Excuse me, but as time goes on, you as a player get more powerful, and that's how it reflects the character's change in skill. You learn the mechanics, you get better, and that's how it reflects instead of your character gets new power and the game's easy, so it just works.
Yeah, and I think in some ways I can see why it changed like that because back when like Halo Combat Evolved and like all that came out, you could be pretty well assured that the people who were playing these games played video games a lot.
Yeah,
Like it was a pretty small audience, but nowadays video games being such a wide-ranging audience thing, it's hard to find that balance because maybe it's like a single data two who just wants to play a little bit of games before he goes to sleep. Like
yeah,
maybe you don't want that kind of like required learning.
there is absolutely an audience component to that, and I'm not saying every game needs to be that way at all. I just miss games that were like that, and it's part of the reason I think the Dark Souls style games got so fucking popular because that's a game that while your in-game growth matters, it's definitively more important how you as a player grow because there's people
Right?
doing
Yeah.
that doing that
There's
shit with no weapons and no armor, no hits.
yeah. Yeah. I think you might be right. I think it's definitely a and actually kind of that brings to mind also difficulties. Uh, I think something that a lot of people that I personally have heard a lot of distaste with is like you'll be playing a game and you'll be messing up repeatedly, and the game's like, "Hey, do you want to lower the difficulty?"
Oh,
And
I have
it's
a
like,
I have
"No,
a I have a rant. When you're done, I have a
I,
rant.
I don't want to lower the difficulty. I want to get better. Stop patronizing me."
Yeah, that's exactly my rant. So, uh, and I don't know if they still do it because I haven't kept up with the Mario games as much as I used to, but I grew up with a lot of those, so I have a soft spot for the like Mario platformers.
Uh,
Um, and for a period of time on the Wii U kind of period of of things, if you died too many times, they would spawn a power up that just made you invincible, and it pissed me off so fucking much when I was in high school. I would get, I would go into like at the time we used Skype, so I'd hop on Skype and hop in the group chat and be like, "What the fuck, dude?" It just, I don't know. It's another weird middle ground because there are people who could probably benefit from that, and having that as a thing that pops up, I get it, but like, can I toggle it or something? Like, leave me alone. In particular, I do not want to switch my difficulty. I picked this for a reason. Leave me alone. I will change the difficulty if I want to change it. I know where to find it in the options menu.
Yeah, and like that's part of the reason that I had so much fun with Elden Ring. Like I haven't played it in a while, granted, but like when I was playing it, it's like, man, I sure have been just like banging my head against this boss for the last 2 hours. Maybe if I tried it like again, maybe it'll work this time. And it's like you learn the boss's moves, you learn what can be parried, what can't, and it's the repetition and the fact that you will fail is built into it, and I really love that.
I, I I'm always torn talking about that franchise because people have been like glazing it for like 10 years now, over 10 years now,
Right,
and
right.
it's reached a point where if you talk about it in a certain way, it just sounds like, I don't know, not cliche exactly, but it
Overplayed.
overplayed, yeah. Um, but there's genuinely some of the smartest designed games from a progression standpoint in my mind. Just in like, there's a lot of things I will complain about with that franchise, and I've played all of them but Demon Souls to completion. I have No, that's not true. I haven't finished Elden Ring yet either. But like the core franchise, the the trilogy and Bloodborne, I played through all of those. Um, and all of them have your progression as a player at the forefront in a way that I feel is really smart and ties back to the way I played games when I was like 10, 11, and younger.
Uh,
That a lot of franchises just literally do not do. And even like games that I will talk up all the time don't even necessarily do that in the same way. Like what's 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 something that I just never shut the fuck up about.
there's Halo.
Halo's kind of included in that camp in a certain way. Um, we'll take Fallout New Vegas.
Sure.
Getting overpowered in that game is stupid easy. It's
Right, yeah,
that game's almost a joke difficulty wise. Even on the hardest difficulty, it's not hard to like just build yourself to be like a fucking tank, just a weapon of mass destruction. Uh,
right.
in New Vegas, your in-game stats and your in-game progression is infinitely more important than whatever you can set up as a player because that's just the way the game's built and that's fine. But the fact that people can take any Souls game and beat it with the worst shit, the worst, like, no armor, the worst weapons, and do it without taking a hit, and it's like a regular occurrence. No one's even surprised anymore. I think it's kind of spectacular.
Yeah, and like the those crazy motherfuckers who do it with like a Dance Dance Revolution pad or
Yeah,
something.
it's it's a difference between character progression and player progression that I think is a real lost art.
Yeah, I saw. Well, sorry, a little bit off topic. I saw one of someone beating it with their goldfish.
Yeah, yeah.
Like their goldfish would control what they did, and they were trying desperately to coax it into the right areas. It's hilarious.
I love those. Um, I not, I guess it's not even exactly a mechanical discussion at this point, but when she asked us to talk about um old stuff, this is like what sits in my mind isn't even necessarily mechanically. It's just like the way games were designed. Uh, and there's a lot of things that are much better than how they used to be designed, and I'm not gonna argue that. I'm not so boomer minded with my video game takes that it's like old games are inherently better, but there's a sense of accomplishment that I don't get out of a lot of games anymore unless I make myself like challenge myself to have that sense of accomplishment somehow.
Right. I think so. Having played, and I granted, I've never played anything but any of the Souls games except Elden Ring. Uh, but having played Elden Ring, I think the closest thing that gives me that kind of sense of accomplishment of like after I beat a boss that I've been having to like bang my head against for hours, I think the closest thing to that sense of accomplishment is honestly, I think it's finishing a really hard mission in Helldivers. I think that's the closest approximation to that feeling of accomplishment that I've been able to produce. Just because like it's the overcoming odds that seemed impossible, I think is what it is. And a lot of games are scared to make something seem impossible because then you'll stop playing and they'll lose players.
Yeah, uh, I we've hit another unfortunate side effect of uh constant player counts being important because so many games are multiplayer, live service, that kind of thing. That
Uh,
things that don't have a way for the players to constantly be locked in uh, are I think a little bit more intimidating for probably more publishers than developers, I would imagine.
right.
Um, which makes me respect like FromSoft just that much more, and that's not something I want to say lightly because like I said, I'm not trying to mindlessly glaze FromSoft, but they hit a unique niche that not a lot of things do very well. Even other like Dark Souls inspired, what do they call them, Souls likes.
Souls
Uh,
likes, yeah.
not even a lot of those don't hit the same way. FromSoft just really knows how to get that player progression down.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, talking about the player progression thing, I think Helldivers is again a fantastic demonstration of that. And I know Helldivers is like kind of one of the games right now, so I'm not just trying to glaze them like you were saying with FromSoft, but like thinking back to my first experiences with that game, it's like I've played a lot of shooter games, so I'm decent at them. I like to think, but everything from like the muscle memory of putting in stratagems to like what weapons work best against what or when to use melee or like all of these details you can get by as a starter in any of the difficulties, but there is such a skill gap between what you can do at the start and what you can do like around level 100
I think that
and
game. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that I think is a prime example of modern player progression over character progression.
I agree. That game does this really cool thing. It's actually remarkably similar to the Dark Souls thing, but a little different. That game's really good at, even though I do think to a certain extent the unlocks you get are fairly important just in terms of the fun factor.
uh
Um, it's not just that you need unlocks to do stuff. It's that the unlocks are more like a tool set and not just a path to being stronger. And if you don't learn how to utilize the tool set the game gives you, you're kind of fucked. Uh,
right. And
go ahead.
another thing that I love is like the stuff you start out with, like the starting machine gun and all that jazz. It's good.
They're
Like you can,
reliable.
I still bring the basic machine gun into missions, like even level 110. Like those things are still really, really good.
It's kind of balanced in the way Team Fortress 2 was, where the default weapons are kind of de facto the best weapons. They're just not the most fun weapons.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it, I think.
And they're not the most interesting weapons, and you can't do anything truly unique with them. Like you can't like I built myself to be the fire safety officer because I thought it was fun. It's not always the best thing for what's going on, but we always make it work, and it's really fucking fun.
It is really fun, and like objectively, against the Illuminate, which is what I've been fighting a lot recently, like I mentioned, like at the start of the recording. Uh, against the Illuminate, objectively, there are better weapons for me to be using, but like, goddamn, if it isn't fun to just bring a melee weapon. And I think it does a really good job of having everything be balanced around the player's skill. Like,
Yeah,
you could, like I said, you could get by with just the starter weapons, or you could specialize into fire like you do, or melee like I do.
God, I love fire. I think I think the probably the standout difference in terms of that, just for like between the two comparisons,
Huh?
is uh, when it comes to like the stratagems and stuff. Uh, I do think unlocking some of the more bigger, better ones of those is fairly important.
Yeah,
That's kind of where that's the one difference, and it's not really anything bad on Helldivers because it's just the way that works, and it's not a problem. And the rest of the player progression is so integral that that's like fine. But you do really want some of those other stratagems out there.
yeah. Like as much as I love how like versatile you can be, there comes a point when like damn, I could spend 10 minutes clearing out this outpost, or I could just throw a 380
I was
barrage.
gonna say there's a reason that all four of us take the 380 when we go.
Yeah,
No matter what we're doing, all four of us carry a 380 barrage with us because it just is the way that it is. Uh,
yeah,
but that's I guess that's also kind of smart in their respect because they also give you like was it 4 slots for those things?
yes, yeah, yeah,
So there's still room to do other stuff, and we all take a vastly different loadout beyond the 380.
yeah. I think really my only complaint is that at a certain point, it feels like some things should just be standard because of, like you're saying, how vital they are. Like the help on space optimization booster. Like that is vital enough that it feels like it should be standard. Like it should just be part of it after a certain point. Uh, or like the 380. Like that is important enough, and people bring it often enough that like it almost feels like it's a just kind of a guaranteed strategy. Like why would you bring anything else? And again, I guess I'm a little bit of a hypocrite there because I have been messing around with other stuff, but like it's so useful.
I it, it it's really good at just removing those mundane tasks that you don't really want to spend time doing. Which is maybe the only knock I have with that game is like some of those side objectives are just so whatever that I just throw the 380 and we move on with our life.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a real minor complaint to be clear. Like it's such a not problem that I had never really considered it a problem until we sat down and really started looking at it like this.
uh-huh.
Uh, but it is maybe the one deviation from that player progression idea. And to be fair, in terms of like the Souls games, there's always like weapons that invalidate that early on, the Moonlight Greatsword, shit like that. So
Right,
it's not
right.
like they're perfect in either respect. And there are absolutely builds in the Dark Souls games you can make to kind of just invalidate a lot of the game. So it's not like either one is perfect in either respect. I just like the idea because I played a lot of like Resident Evil games growing up, and the whole shtick with that series is you play through it once, you take a long time, you see all the things, you kind of get the scary experience, and then you play it over and over and over again and progress as a player and start beating it in like 2 hours.
Right,
My
yeah.
my fastest time in Resident Evil 2 remake is like an hour 45.
Wow.
I speed ran that game for a while.
Yeah, yeah. One game that I think it kind of has a balance of that, like you play through it once and you get like all the knowledge, and then you play through it faster. Is a game called Vintage Story. I haven't played it in a little bit, but I played it a lot a while back, and it's really good at that because you play through it the first time, and there are so many systems you don't know what the hell you're doing. Uh, like there's crop cycles, and I have to like for like actual real world hours let my food like cure before I can eat, hope it lasts long enough through winter. It's like all this stuff. And then you play through it a second time after your first one, and you're like, okay, I'm going to take the time to learn this system. Like, I'm going to learn how to farm. And you spend that whole, like, couple of hours learning how to farm, how all that works. And you're like, okay, I'm going to learn how the advanced food cooking works. And, like, it's all this stuff. And it encourages you to take the time to learn the systems. Kind of like what you're talking about with Resident Evil, where, like, you play through it a few times to learn all of the stuff. And then it lets you just kind of breeze through the game.
I actually kind of think replayability's kind of hit a point like that too, where I think a lot of games now have tried to focus on replayability in maybe a more how do I want to put this? They're tackling replayability in a sense where they want every playthrough to be like unique in some fashion. Uh,
Uh,
and I think that kind of turns into a bit of like a pitfall for a lot of development because it's just impossible, right? Like eventually you're gonna tap out of stuff. It doesn't matter what you're
right.
doing. Even my favorite like roguelikes, eventually you're gonna hit a point where like this is the 800th Isaac run I've done in a week, and it's the same game even if there's a small variation. But that's one of the things like I point to Resident Evil for this all the time because that game's version of replayability isn't giving you a truly unique experience every time. It's encouraging you to get better at this exact experience and making the fun of it mastering the experience. And
Right.
it's a kind of replayability I also miss.
It has a high skill ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think um, I
Yeah,
think
it. Oh,
I'm trying to think of other games that do that really well. I can kind of point to Halo with that, but I think that's more bias speaking than truly the design.
yeah, yeah. I think one game that does that pretty well is uh oh god. I don't know even know if it really counts because it's technically a roguelike, but Inscription, uh
That sounds familiar to
that
me.
that
Is that the
that
card
card
game?
game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the card game. It does that pretty well where like it's basically the same experience every time and it encourages you to learn how to get better at it, but again, I don't know if that really counts into what you're talking about because that is objectively a roguelike and it's not the same experience.
I don't know. I have a tough time even thinking about it like that because in my mind that game is an experience that you get through to completion, and then I was just like done. Right.
Right.
Like that game's got a particular story it's telling, and it was kind of a one and done experience in the terms of like once I finished the story finally, I didn't need to go back, and I don't think I would get anything out of going back to it now.
That's fair. Yeah. I like going back and just playing like the Leshy card game over
Yeah,
again.
the first like I don't know what you would call it, the first like act of that game is really good. All of it's really good, but that first the card game part in particular before it dives into some of the other shit it starts doing after that
Uh,
hits really well. And I don't think that experience would capture for me if I tried to play through the whole thing again.
yeah, yeah, that's fair.
I'm not saying you're wrong necessarily. I just don't.
No, no. Well, that was kind of like I was trying to find the closest approximation I could because excuse me, a lot of the games I play aren't really like that. Uh, I play a lot of uh fairly branching or even like roguelike games that aren't really like that. Uh, oh, actually, hang on. I guess one that I could think of is a game called Rain World, where it is like the replay cycle of it, where you're replaying basically the same day, is inbuilt into the game. So it encourages you to learn the map. It encourages you to learn the systems, to learn the combat, to learn all this stuff. And then if when you mess up, you die and you restart the day. Kind of
Okay.
like a it is like very inbuilt that you will mess up, you will fail, you'll restart, and then you'll have to get back to the day again.
I think I think another good example in that from my experience is like the Metroid games or
Uh,
the later Castlevania games. The Metroidvania genre is just built around
right,
that whole concept of like you go through the first time and you probably struggle and you get these powers and you learn what they do and you learn where to go and then you get a route down and you go from that route into a better route and suddenly people have beaten Metroid 1 in like 45 minutes.
right, yeah,
But this is a part of the conversation where our experiences with games are so fucking fundamentally different just from like, I've got so much time at a different period of my life that you didn't
right, right.
experience.
Yeah, yeah. I never, and I mean, part of it is just a game preference. Like, I have access to Metroidvania. It's just never really been my thing. Uh,
Well, yeah, I just meant like I grew up at a time where that was kind of what most of my options were like. Because
right,
like
yeah,
early 2000s, it was like there wasn't a lot of roguelikes didn't really exist in the way they do now, at least. Um, most games were pretty much linear experiences, and so you had to find things like this to justify like, well, why do I want to replay this? Well, I'm gonna get better at it, and I'm gonna do it really fast.
uh,
Which is it was before replayability was thought of the way it is now. Um,
right, yeah,
because remarkably, uh, the time frame for which you were born matters a lot for your preference on things. Crazy how that works.
wild. Yeah,
Uh,
one game that I guess one game that does that kind of like learning the or learning specifically learning the routes and like learning the methods for that kind of thing. One game that does that really well that I've played is Warframe.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
And granted, that's because you have to run the same route like 80 million times to get the thing you want.
No,
But
I
that,
think it does count though. I get it.
yeah, yeah, like say there's a boss you want to beat. You will eventually, like, I got to a point where I was, like, at the start of it, I was like, man, this boss takes me 10 minutes because I keep getting lost. And then I learned the way to the boss room. And then I learned the boss's mechanics. And then you do all this over the cycles and the cycles. And partly because you have to play it so many times, you learn the routes until you can get it done in like a minute, maybe.
Yeah, I hadn't actually considered the MMO perspective in this part of the conversation, even though I played plenty of MMOs in my time. At one point in my life, MMOs were the way you got this kind of experience, to be honest. But
Right.
that's absolutely a valid interpretation. Just like, regardless of the goal is to get to a certain boss or the next tier or the next milestone, you're still mastering a certain perspective of the gameplay just to continue on. Like I haven't played in a long time now, but I really like Final Fantasy 14, and a part of that game's the loop is doing your dailies, where you run the same set of dungeons and you run them, 7 days a week, and you get so used to these different dungeons that you learn these unique callouts, and your team is clearing it in 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't played many MMOs. I think Warframe is probably the closest. Well, I guess I played Star Wars: The Old Republic, but that was more of I played solo just for the story. Uh, but yeah, Warframe, and I think like you were talking about Final Fantasy, that kind of in a way forced repetition is really good at helping show like player progression. Like
Yeah,
you learn the mechanics, the callouts, like you were saying.
yeah. I don't know how we got to this point where I mean I do know how we got to this point just in terms of like the way games have been developed, but it's strange that out of all the little aspects of a game that can be lost, that it's the aspect of like the player themselves growing that got lost somewhere along the way. Because you think that would be
Right.
fundamental to every experience, but it's really just not, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Uh, Even Mass Effect, which we both love, doesn't have a lot in the way of real player progression. I feel like it's all about what Shepard's next power is going to be and how those powers are kind of just broken.
Yeah.
Which, and I'm not saying that's inherently bad either. Character progression being at the forefront works for a lot of things I love, but it is a strangely lost art. Uh,
It's an uncommon one mostly.
yeah,
Because I mean, like we've been saying, it exists. It's just not as all present as it used to be.
and I think it's kind of reflected in like, and I'm not the most up to date on any of this shit, but like, at one point, games would come out and they'd be kind of put into like the speedrunners gauntlet of like this is a new thing speedrunners can really knock through, and now everyone's been playing the same games from 1997 for that shit.
Uh huh.
And it's like, and the exceptions that I can think of are ones we've already talked about. Like, there's a lot of Dark Souls speedrunners because that's all player progression, which makes it real convenient for speedrunning, where it's all based on, and mostly thinking in terms of glitchless speedruns, I guess, because that turns into a whole different
Uh huh.
conversation. But just in terms of like how fast can somebody beat something based on their own skill. It's a lot
Right.
harder. It's a lot
Yeah.
harder to find those. The modern Doom trilogy, or I guess I don't know about the newest one, but the Doom and Doom Eternal, uh, I think are pretty good at that whole player progression thing. It's filtered into their loop really well.
Yeah.
Uh,
I haven't played the new Doom: The Dark Ages. I haven't played that one yet, but I do agree. Doom 2016 and Eternal do a really good job of both drip feeding you better weapons, but also increasing the difficulty with it. So you have to get better.
it's really well timed and paced into the two that I've played because I haven't played the Dark Ages yet either. Uh, I'm sure I will eventually, but
Yeah.
the new video games on my budget, you're crazy. Um,
I think it's on Game Pass.
fuck. All right, well, we'll see. But
Yeah.
Doom and Doom Eternal loop that in so well because yeah, the character does progress in terms of new equipment, though he's also written to be just kind of a force of nature. So the idea of like these new weapons are just another tool, and everything that really matters is how you as the player interact with the world, and all these new encounters are paced around your skill set. Is maybe the most modern equivalent I can think of outside the Soulsborns.
Yeah. And I really like talking about the series. That like it almost forces you to learn a new playstyle when you go from game to game because each game plays differently.
That was maybe
Like
a lot of people are really hard on some people, a subsect of people are really hard on Doom Eternal because of that, but I think it was such a smart choice.
yeah, like Doom 2016 feels like a run and gun. Doom Eternal feels like
It's
I mean,
borderline a
you're kind of
puzzle
a
to me.
yeah, like it's almost like a dance. You have to learn all the different stuff. I mean, granted, it's a feels like you're on cocaine the whole time, but like you're just running around, darting around. It's a lot more aerial.
Yeah, uh, and the way the weapons matter in each game. In 2016, every weapon had a purpose, but it was a lot more free flow, and you just kind of used whatever weapon you thought you wanted to use in the situation, and by and large, you'd get by as long as you were on your feet and moving. And in Doom Eternal, like I made the comparison of it being like a puzzle, the weapon choice is that puzzle.
It's like a giant rock paper scissors game
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, yeah. Playing Pokemon.
Uh, yeah, and from what I've heard from friends who've played it, Doom: The Dark Ages, it feels a lot more like your job is you stand and you fight. You are a tank. You are not a run and gun. You're not an aerial. You are a wall.
I have heard that its gameplay loop is different, which is good because I think this series is if the series is going to continue, this is the way to do it to swap up what you're doing because you don't want anyone to carry over the skill set from the previous game if you want this progression to last.
Yeah. Another actually talking about Doom Eternal reminded me another game that does that player progression really really well. I think is Ultra Kill.
Yeah, yep. I think you could pretty much put any New Blood game in there to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Like Ultra Kill is a fantastic demonstration of that because it lets you replay the stuff, which you can like learn the routes, learn the bosses, learn the enemies, and it reaches a point where like you could beat the whole game without any weapons. I mean, it would be really painful, but you could do it.
Dusk is like that too. Where you can go back and replay and you get new weapons, but it's a throwback to a period of time where player progression was what mattered.
Right, yeah. And it also the thing that reminded me from Doom Eternal is like I'm not gonna lie, playing that game makes me feel as if I have partaken in some illegal substances.
It,
Like my brain is going a million miles a minute playing that game.
Yeah, no, it requires a degree of thought that it might be the mod even more than like the Souls likes. I think Doom Eternal in particular might be the example of player progression in modern times. It is so integral to that game's loop that it's when you look at the way some people talk about it, you can tell that they didn't get the memo on that one.
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I think it didn't quite go as mechanically as I thought, but I think that's a good roundup on that one.
yeah, I think so.
Because we're supposed to talk about video game sequels
Oh boy.
now. Good, bad, and good sequels, bad sequels, and does a game need a sequel, if at all? So I'm thinking
Yeah,
maybe we'll throw a good out, throw a bad out, go back and forth on that, and I think the last question will probably just come up as it goes along.
yeah, I think so. Man. Okay, good sequels.
Good
I don't know if it
sequels.
really counts. Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, it is.
I'm gonna make an argument here, and I don't know if you're going to agree with me.
Sure, go for it.
Fantastic game, not a very good sequel to Baldur's Gate 1 or 2.
Okay, I will acknowledge that I have not played one or two, so I can't say either way. My kind of the reason I was a little sketchy on that being a sequel at all is it's made by a completely different studio, and it's a
Uh,
completely different playstyle almost.
I excuse me. Oh God, that stuck up on me. I would have muted. Um, I can also agree in that respect, kind of, but I don't really think a sequel necessarily needs to be made by the same people to still count as a sequel. I think it's more about the spirit and being a good follow up than it is exactly whose name is attached. Because I've seen plenty of examples where the same names are attached to something and it fucking blows.
Right?
Uh, but I think gameplay wise, Baldur's Gate 3 actually does fairly well capture kind of the spirit that I want. But when it comes to, for all intents and purposes, this could have been just a game in the setting that happened to share a timeline with Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, but didn't actually need to be Baldur's Gate 3. You know?
Right, right.
There's not a ton. There's plenty of returning characters, but there's not exactly a big through line that I've seen in any mandatory sense. The plot isn't really a follow up to any plots that existed or any plot lines that I can remember.
Okay, so Actually, now I'm thinking about it. I've watched some videos on the first two games. I Okay, how far have you gotten in the game?
I'm in Act 2 right now.
Actually, okay. In Act 3, especially as Dirge, there is actually a lot of interconnection between the first two games and,
See, but
well, specifically the second game.
I did specify mandatory though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as Dirge, actually, a lot of it is mandatory.
But you don't have to play Dirge.
That's also true.
You
You
can
don't
play
have to play
you can play
Dirge.
Tav, you can play Asterion, you can play anybody, and that's like I'm not saying that's a problem. I think that works out great for the game. Though I just hesitate to say it's a really it it might as well be Baldur's Gate spinoff and not
That's fair.
necessarily Baldur's Gate 3. Which is not in any way talking down the game. I don't even think they need it. The calling it Baldur's Gate 3 is entirely fine in my head. I just don't really think it's an actual sequel.
Yeah, that's a fair way to look at it.
But it's in no way a knock against the game because it exists exactly as it should. After
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
20 some odd years, there is no reason to also literally just make a follow up to Baldur's Gate 2 that way. Like, it didn't need to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But I can also see the argument for why it does count. Uh, I just, especially considering it includes a lot of elements that didn't really exist in this setting, to my understanding, uh, when those first two games came out. It includes a lot of 5e specific shit
Uh,
that there's no way they could have accounted for that in a through line to a third game back in 1998.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I'm also not going to say that the gameplay wise isn't probably the most modern equivalent you get to that because it is. Um,
Right.
I wouldn't put it in bad sequel territory either, to be clear. It's just kind of it is what it is.
It's less that it's a bad sequel and more that it's not really a sequel.
Yeah, it might as well not be. At least not a sequel. It's almost more of a sequel in like the Final Fantasy sense, where a lot of their sequels are just more games.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, let's see.
Bad sequels. What do you got for bad sequels?
Bad sequels. I had one prepped for this. Uh, Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5 and PC now, I guess. Good game. Don't like it as a sequel very much. uh, it makes a lot of changes to the gameplay that I dislike. Limits the amount of options you have, and removes things from the first game that I like a lot. And more importantly, I think its story is paced very poorly and follows up very poorly on a lot of elements that I liked from the first game that it set up in this sequel. Oh.
Yeah, I haven't actually played that, so I can't speak to that. Uh, but I will gladly hear you out on all of that.
Do you care? Are you intending to ever play it?
Not really. No, it's
Okay.
not my kind of game.
Um, so I think its pacing is absolutely fucked. Like I fucking hate the pacing of that game so much. Uh, it starts with this really awkward like side villain does a thing and you get wrapped up in this whole prologue and it just happens so out of the blue that it's really weird. And then the whole shtick of the game is like Peter Parker and Miles Morales are both Spider-Man, and together they're stronger than as a team they're stronger than any one villain, which is a great theme when you're trying to do like an eventual passing the torch kind of deal. Um, the problem is they're spent so much time in the story separated that by the time they come back together to work together, it feels forced to me. And Miles kind of ends up feeling like an afterthought in this story that is supposed to be about him coming into his own. Um, to me, um, and most of the major plot villains don't really feel like he should even like he has no ties to anything that's going on besides one specific thing, and he's kind of just there to be Peter Parker's backup for a lot of the major villains who are tied very intrinsically to Peter. Uh, which isn't a problem necessarily, but like if Miles is supposed to be a major part of the story and his only major contribution is near the end, and other than that, he's kind of just running interference for Peter. It feels uh like they wanted to just make a Peter Parker sequel and Miles has to be there because they already set him up or something. His character arc takes such a backseat to everything. To me, it's kind of unfortunate.
Right,
Uh,
especially in a game where it's supposed to be about him passing the torch.
yeah, there's this whole ending where Peter Parker is like, I'm gonna take a back seat and let you do more Spider-Man stuff, and it's like, that's great. Why? Like, you guys didn't earn this payoff to me at all. Like, you spent half the game having this really petty, like, it reminded me of like a romantic comedy where the two made like the leads have like a misunderstanding, falling out kind of thing, and then come back together in the last third, just platonically, and it felt so forced to me. It's so dumb, and it was like, and they're doing the symbiote story, so some of that's kind of warranted, but that's rushed to a degree I don't really like either because they go through that whole arc in a significantly short amount of game time just to pass on the Venom symbiote to who's going to eventually become Venom, and it becomes a whole fucking thing.
Right.
Uh, and then there's gameplay changes, like they remove certain powers and try to give both Spider-Man unique powers, but limit the power pool. And I think a lot of the funnest powers and gadgets that you had access to are just not there anymore. Um,
Right.
and a lot of the plot elements I was interested in seeing followed up on, like a character from the first game, kind of going to like a anti-hero villainous arc, and she's relegated to a side quest. Uh, um, and there was a whole setup for a Carnage related thing and this cult, and it's relegated to the same side quest. And
Right. Right.
um, the setup, so Craven the Hunter is one of the primary villains of that game, and spends his time hunting the different people as you would expect.
Right.
Hunting Spider-Man and the various villains. And one thing that bothered me is they killed, I think, half the Sinister Six off screen.
Yikes.
They kill one of them on screen, and then um, the opening is Peter and Miles fighting Sandman, and they don't really know what's going on. And then you find out later that Craven was hunting Sandman and didn't kill him, and never follows up on that. He just leaves Sandman alone, and it's like, well, that's not right. That's just blatantly
Right.
incorrect. It's super
Yeah.
weird, and it's just like, well, they want to justify you being able to go back and do this side quest related to Sandman whenever you want. But it's like, well, he failed his hunt, so why is he? He should. If his whole shtick is he's looking for someone worthy to hunt because no one else is providing a challenge, but he didn't actually kill this guy, then he didn't finish his hunt. He didn't do his thing. So why is he moving on?
Right.
And I think that's just down to like the pacing being weird. They're trying to get every plot beat they want, and they didn't need to. uh,
Yeah.
on top of cycling through like so many symbiote beats that they want to hit every like cool symbiote thing they can think of, including different people wearing the symbiote suit and the whole Peter gets the symbiote, gets corrupted, gets free of the symbiote, Venom goes nuts, Venom's the primary villain. They cycle through that whole thing way too fast. Like I don't know why everyone insists on Venom sharing the villain spotlight with another villain, because every time they do that in movies and in games, it doesn't work out. Homeboy
Right.
Homeboy needs the center spotlight if he's gonna get it. It
Yeah.
so it just didn't work out for me. I think it's a good game, but like it's disappointing to me because Spider-Man 1 is like a 10 out of 10 to me, borderline perfect to me. I don't even like open
Uh,
world games that much, but I think the game's fantastic. And then they made a spin-off that was like, not as good, but it was a cheaper spin-off, so it's like, whatever. They're just putting something out there. And then they made this sequel and it's like a 7 out of 10 to me, and that's such a drop down.
right.
Uh
Yeah. I mean, it's still a good game, but it's not.
Not what I wanted it to be. I had high
Right.
hopes and I was left disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never played it, so I can't speak from personal experience, but I do see what you mean about it being they were trying to do too many things with not enough time.
Which is crazy because they developed that game for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I think actually like maybe the core of the problem is they wanted the game to be a similar length to the first one, but you have double the Spider-Man and double the plot points now.
Right.
Or more importantly, you should have spread those plot points between two Spider-Men and given it a slightly longer runtime to give both of them time to breathe.
Yeah, yeah.
You got anything for bad?
Ugh, bad sequels.
Which, as stated, doesn't have to be a bad game. You could be a great game and
Yeah,
not be a
okay.
good sequel.
Uh, I guess I can't really think of any games that I've played that were objectively a bad sequel. I guess the closest I could get is the as I mentioned earlier, I'm a big Paradox gamer.
Sure.
Uh, and a lot of their sequels, quote unquote, are just the same game with a new coat of paint,
Hmm.
which is nice. Don't get me wrong. Like upgrading from Crusader Kings 2 to the graphics of Crusader Kings 3, it looks fantastic. Uh, there was some changes that were good, like they made the fact that you can now customize your character not a $5 DLC. Uh,
Fuck you, Paradox.
yeah. Um, like there were some good changes, but at the same time, like when you upgrade to the next game, it's still the same engine. They've been using the same Clausewitz engine since like their first game. And at the same time, with Paradox, of course, DLCs. When you upgrade to Crusader Kings 3, none of your DLC content carries over. So either you have to hope you have a friend like I do who just has all the DLC, or you have to shill out like, hold on, what is it now? Like 150, $200?
Like Paradox easily. Hang on. For Crusader Kings
Uh,
3,
Crusader Kings 3, hang on, yeah. To get all of them, uh, where is it?
it's telling the collection is 171 bucks. All the DLC is
Yeah,
247 and 84 cents.
yeah. And like if you look at the Crusader Kings 2 DLC, that's another like God knows how many. And to be fair, that's on the cheap side of buying all their DLC. Like I want to say Stellaris is close to like $400 at this point.
Crusader Kings 2 is sitting at 310.
Stellaris is sitting at okay. It's actually it's on a sale right now. A 50% sale about, and it's sitting at about $230.
Uh, City Skyline sits at almost 5.
Yeah, like if you upgrade, I understand. Like yes, better graphics. That's cool. You want to institute new game stuff that you couldn't with the base game of the old one. Cool, that's fine. Do that. But have some way that I don't need to take out another loan to get all the DLC.
That's literally more than I get in a week.
Yeah, like I'm not complaining about the new game. The new games, Crusader Kings 3 made so many upgrades. It's such a fun game. It's not old graphics. It's like decent new game mechanic stuff. There's a lot of new cool things you can do. The character customization is better than the first one because you're not just like a floating head. Uh, and also it doesn't cost $5, so that's unrelated. Uh,
I don't think that is unrelated.
actually, yeah, that is kind of
I
directly
think
related.
that's directly related, buddy.
But then, like, I've got a friend who he has all the DLC for Crusader Kings 2. Like, he bought them as they came out, and then he upgrades. Like, he doesn't want to get to Crusader Kings 3 because that's another massive chunk of money he's gonna have to drop on the next game's DLCs, and it sucks. But it also costs as much as a whole new game, basically. And
Yeah,
so I think that's my big gripe with the Paradox like sequels is that there's no incentive to buy the new ones if you already own all the stuff for the old one. And for incoming players, it's really intimidating.
I'm not dedicating a $600 purchase to play a game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's super intimidating to new players. At least have like Crusader Kings 2. They had a solution to this that I think was actually fairly smart. What they did is they made it so that you could get like a pass, quote unquote, to all the DLC for $5 a month, which is a little steep. But like what I did with it is I spent the $5. I played it for a month. I figured out what I did and didn't want, and then I bought those DLC. That's a good way to do it.
it, oh,
But at the same time,
it,
then you move to CK3, and it's like, man, first off, no way to do that testing of what DLCs you want. Second off, none of the stuff that I bought from the old game carries over, even though there's some similar content.
Well, it's
And
also
it,
like that's just an inherently kind of intimidating like any Paradox game is just tough to get into on its base level, and then you add a monetary component that most people can't justify.
yeah, like I genuinely, Stellaris and Crusader Kings are really fun games. I like playing them, especially with other people, mostly because I have to if I want to use the DLC. Uh, but it's hard to get people into them because the monetary cost, the time commitment to learn the game, all of it combines to just make it not worth it for a lot of people.
Yeah, the time commitment alone is crazy. And like that's one of those things where you just accept that some things are gonna have a hell of a time commitment, and that's fine. But it is a brick wall in and of itself. And then you add a $600 additional wall, and it's like, okay, do what you will, I guess. But
Yeah, I guess, and for Stellaris, I guess this doesn't really count because there's not a Stellaris 2. But like, I feel like if you're gonna have that much monetary requirement to get the full game experience, you really have to have some way to carry it over to the next games.
yeah, I would agree with that. I if you're already in a real niche genre, which I think that kind of 4K strategy shit is just inherently niche, it just has to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Adding that much, it, if anyone's gonna spend that much money, it's people already dedicated to the genre. But that doesn't mean they should be spending that much money.
Yeah. And I will grant, if you are already in the game, like if you've been playing it since launch, like some of my friends have with Stellaris, it's not as bad because like you buy the DLCs as they come out. And that makes it, instead of a $600 bulk purchase, it's like, no, it's like $20 here, $10 there, $30 there. It's a lot more spread out, but that's still a lot of money and it's not encouraging new people to join.
Well, and I'm not sure this is necessarily intentional or not, but it hits in at a point of like it kind of whether unintentional or intentional makes your primary strategy to get money out of people like a FOMO thing, which is kind of predatory.
Oh, it's super predatory. And it's also, I mean, in a way, it's relying on their audience to be whales.
Yeah,
Like,
it's kind of just fleecing
and
your audience for absurd amounts of money.
yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying that it's not, they don't put good content out. There's some fun stuff they put in there. It's just that their marketing strategy is super, super predatory.
Well, and I'm gonna be honest, it kind of it's a thing with like The Sims and EA, where if so much of your really fun content comes out that way over time, did you even make a full game, or did you just make enough to get people interested and then save the best content for later or something? Because like at this point, The Sims should just start including their pets in the game, right? Everybody wants it. It's the usually the first expansion that comes out. You have the baseline for how you'd make that. Why is it coming out for $40 a year or two later?
Right. And I think that's honestly where their marketing strategy comes back to bite them because with the Stellaris, we'll use that as an example. They've been considering putting some of the DLCs just into the base game because it's not the same game without them. It's objectively like how the game was supposed to be played. They've been considering putting those into the base game. But because of their marketing strategy and because they rely so heavily on the same people coming back to buy them, that's gonna drive a lot of people away because they spent the money on it,
Yeah,
right?
well, if you're gonna release it as a DLC, you can't turn around and make it free later unless you're gonna offer something to the people who already bought it. But then you're just making the problem worse. There's
Yeah,
something else to
exactly.
go buy at that point.
And like I know when they were first talking about that, people were like, "Okay, so am I getting a refund for the money I spent on that DLC?" And like that's the point when it comes back to bite them is like, yeah, this should be base game. Like the ability to make megastructures, that feels pretty important for a space grand strategy game.
when the Sims 4 came out, that it didn't include. I think it was toddlers. It didn't include. Like there were just no toddlers in the game, which was a thing in at least three. I think two as well.
uh,
So they removed toddlers. I think they removed like washing machines and dryers and just put them in later updates, like later DLCs. And it's like this is just a core feature of your previous games. You're scum. You're the worst.
yeah, man, removing babies is wild.
No, babies were there.
Well, babies were there. It's just they went straight from
They
babies
went
to
from
like what,
babies
children?
to like young kids or something like that. I don't remember the exact stage of life that was skipped, but it was like there was like maybe it was like babies, toddlers, teenagers, or something like that. but
That's wild.
it was wild. The Sims 4 is a fucking well, it was a fucking mess, dude.
Yeah, I've never played the Sims games. If I wanted to simulate life stuff like that, I just played RimWorld,
Dude, I fucking love RimWorld.
fire game.
Anyway, uh, good sequel. I think I have a good sequel. I was just thinking about it, and I got lost. What the fuck? I had it in my head, and then we went on this tangent, and now I'm lost again.
Yeah,
Kind of the name of the game, I guess. Metro Exodus. Well, then bring up.
Metro. Yeah,
I
yeah, those are
I
a good game.
I like 2033. I really like Last Light, and I fucking love Exodus. I think Exodus is exactly what the series needed to become, and I hope if they continue on with that series outside of VR that they build on Exodus and not build on Last Light. I like Last Light, but the everything about Exodus is improved in a way that I like. I think the open environments lead for a better atmosphere and more fun exploration. I think the story is better told in that game. I think there's better characters. I think the gunplay is more fun. I think the environmental design is better. I think the setup is a lot more interesting. And I already liked the setup of those games.
Right.
It
Yeah,
takes it takes everything and just expands it out in a way that I like.
yeah, I really like the Metro games. I got I want to say, hang on, which one did I get? I picked up one of them ages ago when it was free on yeah, I picked up 2033 Redux. No, sorry, Last Light Redux. I picked that one up ages ago when it was free on Epic for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I never got around to playing it. Well, I'd play a little bit of it, and then my computer would freak the fuck out, and I could never figure out why. And then I got it on Steam a little bit ago when they all went on sale, and it was really funny because I turned on the game and I immediately panicked because my lights on my computer turned off,
Oh, kill your RGB.
and and like I started like trying to figure it out, and then I was like, okay, well, I mean, my computer seems to be working just fine, so I'll just play the game, I guess. And then my computer started like the LED started strobing red, and I was like, okay, that's bad. It only does that when something's wrong. And so I started looking into it, and it turns out that apparently, specifically the Metro games have some kind of like link system with the drivers for my RGBs
Okay.
that when I'm stealthing, it pulses in correspondence with the level of light that I'm in, and it freaked the fuck out of me. And that like for the longest time, I just didn't play the games because I thought it was like bricking my PC or something.
Bro's afraid.
But yeah, no, the games now that I've played them, they're fantastic.
They are
Love those
really good.
games.
I think I really expected to not like Exodus because I'm like I said I don't really like open worlds that much, and in that game's defense, it's not really an open world so much as it is hubs that you go through.
Right.
But they nailed it. One of the things Metro's always really good at the atmosphere and the environments. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
but the gameplay was just kind of okay. The shooting was just good enough. And hey, go start barking over there. Uh,
Dogs.
dogs was always okay. It was serviceable. It got things across, and the stories were good enough to get you through. But the environment and the atmosphere carried it, and it kind of lacked in what I think it would be best at, which is exploration. So they solved that problem by taking you out of the tunnels, which you think would be a horrible idea given what the series is. But
Given the yeah, given the universe.
it turns out that it just works so much better. Uh, turns out if Metro were more like Stalker, it would just be better.
Stalker, great game series.
Great game series. I haven't played the newest one yet.
I've heard mixed reports about the new one, which actually I guess is kind of related to what we're talking about. Uh, I will take what I say with a massive grain of salt. I've never played the new one, but I've heard that it fell off hard compared to the new game or the old game. Uh, Mostly in relation to how alive the world feels. Because in the older Stalker games, the NPCs felt very alive, like they felt very real, and they would react to what you do. They would like the monsters would drag people off. The uh, the NPCs would react to what you do like very very well.
Hmm.
And in the new game, and I think part of it is to the engine to blame. But like the NPCs, they feel like NPCs in every other game, which is like they have pre-programmed responses to a few things, but that's about it. The story I've heard is pretty solid, which I mean I'd hope so. Stalker's usually got pretty good stories, but the world I've heard feels a lot colder, I guess, and not in like not in the way that you might hope, like, oh, it's more gritty. Like, no, it just feels more empty.
More empty. Well, that series is always great because you could just be chilling in something completely unexpected, and like the world moved no matter where you were. And so sometimes things would just come around and you weren't ready for it to exist, but suddenly there's a mutated boar chomping on your ass or whatever.
Right,
Or
right.
people decide they didn't like you and are finally trying to come kill you or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. One of the ones that I've seen in particular is I forget which game it was, but enemies would like sneak up on you. Like they would sneak up on you, whereas in the new one, it's almost like Far Cry. They stay in their zone, and most of the time they stay still in their zone, which is funny given it's a stalker zone
Oh,
and all that.
that's
But
the
that's
zone.
unrelated. Uh, but yeah, and again, huge grain of salt. Never played it myself. Don't have an opinion personally. But from what I've heard, it sounds like it's a lot less alive than the older ones.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that game wasn't developed for so long. There was almost statistically no way it was gonna match up,
Yeah,
right?
and admittedly, I have to give them some slack because their country literally came under attack in the middle of development. But like,
Yeah, you know. Did you have anything good wise?
uh,
I think I've done
good
too bad.
sequels, good sequels. God, I had one. Let me find it again. Divinity: Original Sin 2.
Oh, there you go.
That is, I've played both games. The first game, and I will admit, I played the second game first, and then I got the first game. But the first game, it feels so much more restrictive. You could only play as humans. You were set into a very specific role, and I mean, the story was fine. The story was really good, but it was much more restrictive. And admittedly, there was a graphical component to it. Your characters kind of either looked like a GI Joe figure or like a Barbie. Uh, and then with Divinity: Original Sin 2, it was just better in every way, pretty much. Like the story was better, the characters were more. I mean, they looked less like clay dolls. The gameplay system was a lot more involved, like with the element system and all that. Uh, and the fact that you could actually like really customize your character. That was really really nice. Uh,
How direct of a sequel is that game?
uh, I okay. As far as I can tell, it's fairly direct. I believe there's a few. I'd have to look up the exact timeline. It's been ages since I played those games, but they take place in the same universe, one after the other. Hang on. I'm fairly certain that the first game takes place where you're like discovering the problem that's happening,
Okay.
and then the second game is dealing with the after effects of that problem.
Okay.
Uh, okay, so it looks like the first Divinity game takes place about 10 years before the second one, and I'm sure that might be inaccurate. I'm just looking at from a very, very quick look up. Uh, I might. Oh God, actually, that might be horribly incorrect. Hang on.
Uh-oh.
Uh, okay, further inspection. So the first game takes place in 4. AR,
Okay.
and then is that supposed to be AD? I think it's supposed to be AD. 4 AD, and then the second game, I was so far off. The second game takes place almost 1,200 years later,
Oh,
so there's a little bit of a difference there. Uh, so they take place in the same timeline, but they are very far apart in said timeline.
okay. So those are two. I've played a little bit of the first one, but I really want to play the second one.
The second one, it's so good. Unironically, one of my favorite games, top three. Uh, yeah, Larian does a fantastic job with that game.
They're good.
And the characters, like the characters you roll with, the non-player characters, they are so well fleshed out. And I think the biggest sin, that the game commits is
Boo.
shush, it was funny. The biggest the biggest wrong thing that game does is like you only get access to like four of the characters' stories at once because you have like by nature of the game, you kind of have to leave some of the characters behind.
No.
And it plays into that. Like you when you leave them behind, it's not the last time you run across them, but it does lock you. It forces you almost to do multiple playthroughs to get the full character stories. Uh, that's the only thing it does wrong, I think, is it kind of forces you to do multiple playthroughs of a very long game to get the full picture of all the NPCs. But yeah, I think aside from that, Divinity Original Sin 2, fantastic sequel, improved in almost every way on Divinity 1.
Uh, bad wise, and I don't know if this is gonna be a hot take or not because I don't really know what the popular consensus is on this one. XCOM 2 really sucks.
I couldn't say. That's another game series that I never really. I mean, I dipped my foot into it a little bit, but I've never really partook in it
I
a whole lot. I've heard.
really like XCOM Enemy Unknown and its expansion Enemy Within, and I like almost nothing about XCOM 2.
I've heard that the most recent XCOM. I forget what that one is. But I've heard that the most recent one, I think it's Chimera Squad.
Yeah.
I've heard that one is kind of a shit show.
It's not good, but it's a different kind of game, so it's kind of whatever. XCOM
I've
2 is such a direct sequel in maybe my least favorite kind of way, where it's just like I don't know. They change things that I don't necessarily think they needed to change, and a lot of the new stuff they did instead is unsatisfying. I think a lot of the story beats, which didn't even necessarily need to be there because the kind of game it is, weren't very satisfying. And it does this miserable thing, from what I understand, where it determines what your hit chance is before you roll up, and is determined whether you're going to hit or not regardless. And reloading does not change that percentage chance. You just aren't going to hit if you're not going to hit.
Yeah, that's not great.
And that's annoying as fuck because, yeah, I get maybe you don't want people to save scum, but I don't really think that's up to you. Fuck you,
Yeah,
developers. If I want to save scum, I goddamn well will. And the fact that you've decided whether or not I'm going to hit ahead of time really annoys the shit out of me. It ruins the whole flow of the game because I feel like the perseverance to save scum over and over was almost kind of like one of my advantages, was one of my tool sets. If I wanted to, I
right.
could. And you take that away in the most aggravating way possible, where your
It feels
percentage,
almost like you're being railroaded.
yeah, like you just this shit applying to me. If you say you got a 90% chance to hit, but you've already decided that I've rolled in the 10% and didn't hit, why'd you even tell me there's a 90% chance to hit?
Right,
just,
yeah.
just literally
Yeah.
don't.
One big complaint that I've heard about Chimera Squad, because that's the only one I have really any perspective on. Uh, Chimera Squad is that it takes place after the aliens get kicked off Earth,
Yeah,
and it just kind of glosses over the fact that the aliens have been horrifically enslaving humanity for like years.
yeah,
And it's like, oh yeah, no, that species that like the people within their lifetime experience that slavery had their parents slaughtered by this species. Yeah, no, they're just buddy buddy now.
well,
Like within
XCOM,
years.
XCOM 2 like doesn't even live up to its potential in that like the concept is cool to me, where XCOM 2 is a sequel to the worst possible outcome of XCOM 1, where you lose and the aliens win and take over the world. And then you get to fight like a guerrilla war against them to get your planet back like 30 years later. I like that idea. Unfortunately, all the applications of this guerrilla warfare gameplay style just aggravate me. All the really cool like character classes have been swapped for things that I find a lot less fun. And while I kind of like the idea, it also means that the absolute like perseverance and like all the struggle I went through in the first game is now completely invalidated. So I might as well have not even tried. It's
Right.
is
Yeah.
really aggravating in and of itself.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I guess I'm looking at it, and again, this is mostly because I've never played the games, but Chimera Squad, my main issue with that is it had so many cool opportunities to explore like characters growing to accept that like, yeah, okay, this guy who I'm working with, he's actually an okay guy. Uh or like, all that kind of cool character progression. But instead it's like, yeah, no, in the like 4 years that have passed since XCOM 2, the ending of XCOM 2, we're all cool. We're friends. Don't worry about it.
that is really funny, given it was like 30 years of genetic modification, kidnapping, and uh. But no, I really don't like XCOM 2. I they dropped the ball in just about every respect to me on that one, which is a shame because I think XCOM Enemy Unknown is particularly fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually didn't know about that predetermined outcome thing. That's kind of scummy.
I if I understand correctly, that is the way it works. I'm not saying I'm not wrong. I just from my memory, that is the way it works. I
Yikes.
didn't dive into code and go look or anything, but
Uh-huh.
like I've done things where I've like loaded up and tried to save scum and it just never hit, and I've read other people say that's the way it works, so I'm just assuming that is correct.
Right.
And if it
I mean, that
is,
sounds right.
it's it. I have to assume because like if I got a 90% chance to hit and I fail 10 times in a row,
Yeah, I looked it up and it looks like a lot of people are guessing that it runs off of seeds,
uh,
where like your rolls are seeded, which is still scummy, but
why even tell me I got a percentage chance to hit
right,
then?
yeah.
Why even give me a number? Like what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of shitty actually. I didn't know about that, but that's kind of awful.
Yeah, especially because the first game just didn't work like that. So why?
Yeah.
Why do this?
I mean, if you want to stop saves coming, just make it so that you can like can't save in combat.
Or just don't give a shit. Why do you care how
Or
I've
just
been?
don't care. Yeah,
Why?
like don't
Why do
care.
you
Yeah.
care? I bought the game.
Let
Let
me
me save scum. Fuck you.
let me enjoy the game. Yeah.
Who are you to tell me what to do? Um. All right. So, on that note, when does a game need a sequel? What goes into a good sequel? I think is the.
Oh man, yeah, okay, that is something that I have thoughts about.
I'll pop off.
So, I think the biggest example of this that I can say, and I'm kind of outing myself here, but I used to be a massive Destiny fanboy. I love that series. Uh, don't play it anymore for reasons I'll get into, but Destiny 1, that was the main game I played when I was a kid. Uh, Loved that game. Played it, all the DLCs. So fun. Destiny 2, when I finally got my Xbox One, I played that one over and over and over. So fun. Uh, Started to get mad at it. Started playing it less when they started sunsetting things. Started removing stuff. But I stuck with the story because the story and the lore of that universe have always been the sticking point for me. I love that series' lore. Uh, and then just I think it was I forget when it came out. I think it was last year or earlier this year maybe. Uh, the final shape, like the major DLC for the ending of the Darkness and Light cycle. Uh, Fantastic DLC. It wrapped everything up so nicely. It was a really well done conclusion that was implemented really well in an MMO. I really liked it. And that after I'd taken a long hiatus from the game after Lightfall came out because that was the exact opposite. That was a, kind of a dumpster fire of a DLC. Uh, and then I play through the last DLC, and I was really happy. It was a good game. It was a fantastic conclusion. We'd wrapped everything up really well. We had everything under control. It was really good. And then I realized the season wasn't over yet. In fact, it had barely even started. And I was thinking, okay, how are they gonna wait? What's the point here? How are they gonna like? They just finished the story. What's the point now? And then they kept dragging it out, and they invented a new enemy that was like not really that compelling because we'd already like dealt with them, but they were back. Uh, and then they realized, hey, people don't like this new enemy we're introducing. Okay, and the new season they brought back Oryx, who was like the best villain from the first game. Like, oh yeah, that guy you killed who was really satisfying and a fun raid, he's back. Surprise. Uh, and I think it's become really obvious to me and to a lot of my friends who also used to play Destiny that at this point all they're doing is they're trying to milk the game. They're trying to come up with new storylines that will get people back into it, but they're only looking at it from what will make us money, and they're cashing in on nostalgia that they really shouldn't be because it's just ruining the story. And it's all this stuff, and it really sucks because there's some good stuff that they're doing. Like there's some really cool character arcs. It's just overshadowed by how awful the rest of it is. And they had so many good options. I think one that I heard tossed around a lot was they would end the game there. Like they'd cut off development, like they'd keep bug fixing and like keeping some stuff updated, but they would do what they did with Destiny 1, where they keep the servers up, but they transition to the next game. And I think at the point where you've killed the BBEG that you've been building up for 2 whole games, they they have a satisfying conclusion for all of the character arcs that they had. They had super good character development for the ones who didn't have arcs in the previous areas, and it was just a really perfect, satisfying conclusion. That is when you should stop. Because I know it'll make you more money if you keep going, but it's going to ruin the story and you're going to drive away the fans you've been holding. And I think that is that is the moment that you need to make a sequel. Either make a sequel or just cut it off and like sustain the stuff you already have. Because by that point, all you're accomplishing is driving away old players, and new players will see that, oh, hey, this guy has like 14,000 hours on this game, and he's saying it's in a really bad place right now and is only going to get worse. I'm not going to get into that. So the only thing you're accomplishing is sending your company into a death spiral, which is the exact opposite of what you're trying to do, in that you're trying to milk the player base for more money.
I just think that game needs a sequel. Ignoring the plot, which I'm not up to date enough to have an answer to. Mechanically, that game is bloated as fuck.
Oh yeah, horribly. At the point when you have to start deleting game components of your game to make it not take up too much space on the drives of your players, that's when you need a new game.
Insane,
Uh,
by the way, that they didn't just include like a content toggle of some fashion.
yeah, the thing that drives me up the wall to this day, after they removed Forsaken, the locations and the files were still in the game. They were still there. You just couldn't access them.
That the point where they vaulted Red War and I think the first 2 expansions was about the
Yep.
point I tapped out. Because it's
Yeah,
like I spent $60 on Red War in the first place, and then you made it free, and it's like okay, whatever. And then you vault shit, and it's like okay, I paid for all of this.
yeah, I paid for that. I don't like that being taken away. Thank you. Yeah, it's a shame because really I love the lore of that universe, but then it's just, I mean, like at a certain point it just can't outweigh the stuff that they did in between. Like
Uh,
the completion of the story felt so perfect, and there was like, okay, so at the end of the DLC, right? You've killed the BBEG. The darkness TM is gone, right? And so now the reason that we didn't ever leave our solar system is because the darkness was everywhere else. But it's not anymore. So you could have had this whole thing of like, oh yeah, the Cabal, who we're allied with, let's go help them retake their system. Or like, oh yeah, the Fallen, who we're allied with, let's go help them get a new planet, help them find somewhere to call their own. Now that the rest of the solar system, the rest of the galaxy is open, there was so much potential for what they could have done. They could have added a whole new area. They could have said, okay, we're gonna pause on making new stuff for like a year, right? And we're going to come back with either a new game, which they probably should have done, or hey, here's a whole new section of this game that we're going to add, and you can go there and help them do this stuff. Like, it would have been better as a DLC, or not a DLC, sorry, a sequel. But I could see it being done as a DLC if they just did more than just count on nostalgia bait.
I always think it's a shame because I think at its core, that game, Bungie knew how to make gunplay. They really did. That game's got
Oh yeah,
stellar gunplay. It's too bad it's bogged down with so much shit that I don't know what's going on and I don't ever want to find out again.
yep, yeah, and like I remember back like I would be grinding for like guns and new armor and stuff for hours, and it was fun. But it got so bogged down with extra mechanics and new stuff and bloated story that didn't need to be there, and it just went downhill.
It's yeah, it's one of the few instances where I don't really know enough about the story or don't really care about the story that much, but I do really like the mechanics of that game, the gunplay in particular. And I just really wish that there was a way for me to enjoy that, but I can't because it's all gone to such shit.
Yep. Yeah, and it's it's one of those things where it's like never meet your heroes. Like I really got into the game again. I was having fun. I was grinding when the new DLC came out, and I was having a damn good time. And then everything started just kind of going downhill after the DLC ended because they realized, hey, we've wrapped up our story. We don't have like what are we going to do after this, right? And then their solution to what to do after it was to cash in nostalgia bait, bring back stuff that people have been asking for. Like, hey guys, look, we added this thing. You should stick around. And it just went downhill.
So, okay, answer one. If your MMO is bloated, please make a sequel or something. Dear God.
Yeah, if you finish your story, make a sequel or like a new game.
MMO wise, there is precedent to transition to a different story if you're gonna do it right. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
the WoW is basically transitioned to slightly different plot lines every other expansion at this point. So,
yeah, exactly. And I think honestly, as weird as it sounds, the biggest mistake Bungie made was completing their story. Because like from a player standpoint, I liked it. I think that was the right thing to do. From a company standpoint, if they were trying to get more money, they should not have completed their story. Like as soon as that happens, you've lost most of your player base. But I don't know. I think it's at the point when it, like you said, bloated, needs to become a sequel. Finish the story, either transition completely to a new like setting, like to a new solar system or something, or do a sequel. I think bloat is the main driver to just make a sequel, and it only really ever comes up with live service games. I think single player games or like even some multiplayer games, like there comes a point when it's like you can't really. It's difficult to bloat a single player game like that.
if your single player game's bloated already, then that was a problem, regardless of a
That's
sequel. Like, that's not.
yeah, that's not something a sequel can fix.
Uh, in the, I think the, I don't know, MMOs get like a unique circumstance to this, anyways, because an inherent like the easy solution to Destiny's bloat problem was just a content like filter. Like, I can toggle what content I'm going to install or uninstall, and yeah, your queue times are fucked, but at this point they're probably just fucked anyways, so whatever.
Right.
Um, single player wise is where I think it gets a little bit more complicated. Because to some degree, I hesitate to say that nothing should ever get a sequel in the context of like there's some stories that wrap up and don't need a follow up, but there's not a lot of games that come out where I'm like, this world is no longer needed to exist. Like this game's setting can't be utilized in some fashion. Um, that's where it gets a lot tougher because like I'm trying to think of something that I just think doesn't flat out need anything else in its world at all. And that's a hard one to come up with.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
think sequels for single player games, I'll put it this way. They are always good as long as they are made with the idea of wanting to expand the universe, not to make more money.
I
Like
think
if
I think the real like pin in single player sequels is can you do anything mechanically to expand on this universe? Because like take any Mass Effect, you could tell a million stories in that universe. They don't have to be connected to anything at all.
right.
Tell your own story. I don't think Andromeda came out particularly well, but the idea of the story would fit just fine if they had done it differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Also there's no Quarians in it, which as you
uh
may have guessed is a bit of a problem
big,
for
big,
me.
big, big shame. Real L there. Um, the real problem I think comes up with that is mechanically that was not expanded in a particularly interesting way. Uh, all you succeeded by removing the idea of classes and making it more free flow is that no one has any identity anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, not how I would have gone about that one at all. There's a million other ways you could have expanded on that mechanically, and I think that's not one of them. And part of my problem with like Spider-Man 2 we were talking about earlier is mechanically it feels like a walk back to me. Uh,
Right.
and storyline wise, they don't follow up in any meaningful way, which in that game's case, that game needed a sequel, and I just didn't like the one that came out. But like, if they make another Red Dead Redemption game, you can't have it tied to what already happened in that series because it's pretty said and done at this point.
Yeah.
So at this point, do you even make another game in that series, or do you just make an unrelated Western, or do you just leave it alone altogether?
Yeah, yeah.
Which I would just tell them to leave it alone at this point, to be honest.
Yeah, I've seen some theories about John Marston's son being the protagonist for the third game. But I mean, at that point in the real world timeline, there's not really much Western stuff going on anymore. Like, is it going to transition into a
Red Dead 1 was already at the tail end of the Western society. like,
like is Red Dead 3 going to be John Marston's son
World
enlisting in World War
War
One?
One. like, I just don't think if they even want to touch that again, you did the gang, the Vandalin gang, nothing to do with it, not involved whatsoever. None of those characters should return. Completely new cast. I mean that down to like secondary characters.
Yeah, like maybe a few cameos, but only done in like they cannot be part of the main story.
I wouldn't even recommend doing that. I would just leave it entirely. Entirely new cast, no one returns. If you want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, it shouldn't be in any way connected to what's already happened. I think all of that is said and done. There's nothing
Yeah.
you can expand on that would be meaningful whatsoever.
You know what would be a fun way actually to kind of have a semi cameo is in Red Dead 1 when John comes across death.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be a fun cameo
That guy,
as
you know,
like a
I'll give that a pass. That guy can come back.
yeah, because that would be a really good way to simultaneously connect the universes while not binding them together. Or connect the storylines, I guess, not universes, it's the same universe. But like connect the storylines without binding them together.
I that would be fine. I think location is probably the best way to tie things together. Hey, look, there's Blackwater. We've been there a million times.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
But like actual characters, especially anyone who was named and had major interactions with Arthur or John, would just be a misstep. Um,
Yeah, I think so.
uh, which is ironically like the opposite problem I have with a lot of GTA games as a sequel, because the abundance of the lack of any recurring element that really matters is crazy to me. The only time anybody
Yeah,
shows back
yeah.
up in that series is to die is insane.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. The what is it? GTA 6. I think aren't they moving it to a new location like entirely?
It'll be in Vice City, is what I understand.
Right. Yeah, not a new location, just
Which
Vice
is
City.
which is not new unless you're whatever.
Yeah, it's. I'll be interested to see how they do that because I like you're saying that I know of the only cameos in GTA games are for people to die.
The only ones I can think of offhand are just people coming back to die. No, there's one exception, I guess. Uh, the Irish guy from GTA 4 is just in GTA 5 as a heist guy and doesn't necessarily die,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the one exception I can think of, and it's crazy to me that it's optional.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they have some guys from the DLC show up in 5, and they are just there to be killed. Uh, in 4,
Doesn't one of the main characters, or not main characters, but like one of the characters show up in oh god, what's that guy's name? Hang on. You continue. I'm gonna look this up.
uh, but like 4 obviously didn't have any returning characters because they did a timeline reset or whatever, and then 5 only brought people back from 4 to kill them. And the original, the PS2 games did this a little bit better because they had people show up off and on and not die and actually contribute to plots. But like modern wise, I don't know why they even insist they're in the same universe if they're just gonna kill people.
Yeah, so didn't Trevor kill one of the characters in like his introduction?
Yeah, killed Johnny Klebitz.
Yeah.
One of the best characters in the 4 GTA 4 like series, and they just kill him in his first appearance in 5, and it's honestly I really don't like it because it's like it walks back all of his growth in that DLC, and I don't know. I just don't know what the point was. Like you want to establish Trevor a certain way, you could have killed anybody. It didn't have to be a
Right,
returning
it didn't have
character.
to be him. Yeah.
And then they bring back like a minor antagonist from a different DLC from 4, and he just gets killed by Michael. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
why even bring back these people if you're just gonna kill them or make them irrelevant? I would rather you just completely make the story individualized at that point. I don't need any returning characters necessarily.
I mean, realistically, it doesn't even have to be the same universe. Like,
Yeah, I don't know what the point of like GTA 4 and 5 share a universe if it doesn't mean anything. Then what the fuck's the point?
right.
Like, there's a reason like most of the Final Fantasy games don't share a universe, and the ones that do aren't a mainline sequel, but are a sequel to like you got 10, and then you got 10-2, and then 11 comes out and is its own game with its own universe. It works.
Yeah, yeah. One one thing I have seen actually about that sort of thing that I kind of like actually is games that are sequels to different series in that they take place in the same timeline but are different games. I don't mean like GTA 4 and then 5. I mean like GTA like 4 and 5 are technically sequels to the Red Dead series because they take place in the same universe. And the modern Doom games and actually the old ones because those are connected. That's a whole thing. Uh, the Doom Marine is related to BJ Blazkowicz
If
from the Wolfenstein games.
if that's still canon,
It
because
is.
is it?
It is. Yeah.
Because as far as I know, the only confirmation of that was in a spin-off that does not necessarily share canon with the other 6 games.
Near as I can tell, everything has been pointing towards them being connected.
The only, from what I understand in the games, the only actual in-game confirmation that it's the same guy is a tie-in to Doom 2 in Doom Eternal. And that tie-in doesn't relate to the Doom spin-off that confirms Doom Marine as a Blazkowicz Bloodline character.
Well, see, the thing is, because the Doom Marine in like the original OG Doom games is the same Marine in the modern games, like that's the same dude. If it was the case for the old one, then it's still the case for the new one.
If, because that information wasn't included in any of these main 6 games, though. And that's where it comes into question.
That's true. That's true.
Because as far as I understand, that confirmation came from a spin-off game that's canon that has not been pointed to be canon and was maybe never canon in the first place.
Okay, so near as I can tell from what I can find, in the original Wolfenstein games, like not the new ones, the older ones, he is the great grandfather of the Doom Marine in the original Doom games. So in that sense, yes, he is BJ Blazkowicz's like great grandson. However, this doesn't mean that the new BJ Blazkowicz is still his great grandfather because they take a very different storyline. I'm not. It's a whole thing. That storyline is so confused. My point is that games that do that, where like they take place in the same universe at different points in time, like Divinity 1 and 2, I like universes that do that because it gives you plenty of playtime to like shape things into what you want for the sequel while still giving the players the sense that, hey, I was in this universe before. Like
Yeah,
I've done something here
yeah,
before.
I do wish more things would utilize their settings in a grander fashion like that, where I don't know, there is the risk of like bloating your own lore, but I think if you're smart about it, you could have multiple things occurring in the same universe and not really fuck anything up. And it'd be really interesting to see more universes from a broader perspective, more points of view. Uh, like oh god, come on, there's gotta be an example in my head somewhere. Um,
The Star Wars games.
yeah, I think the Star Wars games capitalizing on that universe to tell stories from completely different perspectives is why they're basically the best Star Wars content there is.
Yeah, yeah,
So far removed from the shit that I don't care for in that series that it's like, here's the stuff that's actually interesting. That is far removed from this because the films take like a very particular approach to the Jedi and stuff that I don't really care about. But then you get to like KOTOR, which explores more aspects of Jedi in a way that the films will never touch with a 10-foot pole, or you get the Jedi Knight trilogy, which explores a whole different aspect of that fight altogether, or Republic Commando, which explores clones in a way that you don't ever see anywhere else, and I like it, or Jedi Fallen Order, which covers a period of time that no one ever wants to talk about.
yeah. Uh, I think it's. I mean, it's part of the reason they do that is because it is such a vibrant, widespread universe. Like, there's a lot of stuff to do there.
with,
Uh,
with thousands of
I think,
years of free time with nothing happening.
yeah, 40K has the potential to do that. The only issue is because the lifespan of so many characters is kind of ambiguous, it's really hard to avoid the pitfall of, oh yeah, and by the way, this guy's here. Uh, I think, and this I'll grant you is kind of an exception because I mean he's kind of a vital character. Space Marine 2, it takes place 200 years afterwards, which normally would be a new series, like a lot would have happened. But 200 years in 40K is nothing. Like there's some stuff that like some storylines that play out over tens of thousands of years. So it's I think Star Wars does it well because very few characters live longer than like 200 years. I think it's difficult. It depends on the universe. The viability of those kind of long spreading and wide ranging stories depends heavily on the rules of the universe.
Now, obviously, my 40K experience is a lot different than yours, but from the stuff I have experienced, which isn't nothing but isn't yours, uh,
Right.
I actually like how their approach to it seems to be, from my understanding, where people will show up and you'll be like, "Oh, it's that guy," but there's so much time that it could have happened at any point compared to another event, and it just kind of ends up being a cool tie-in and expands on that character's history in a way that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not as bothersome as it would be if like it's it's the joke with all the Star Wars stuff going on now about Glup Shido, oh it's that guy, random
Right,
fucking
right,
nobody,
yeah.
and he's just there to be there. I don't know if I could consider anything I've seen out of 40K to have that problem, distinctly speaking, just in terms of like these guys have to be somewhere, and if they're living this long, they
Right.
have to be doing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. My saying that was a lot less of a complaint about like it's they are just doing this to bait fans. It's no, it's just difficult to do these kind of like individualized stories without some kind of tie-in to another story. And usually the tie-in is the guy shows up because it's a galaxy-spanning storyline.
There is, I guess, to kind of the flip the perspective, there is some coolness to that too, because it's like everything happening, being not tied, but like uh
Link.
linked. Yeah, like uh what the fuck was the boomer shooter called? There's a 40K game that takes place in the same planet that Space Marine 1 takes place in, and it doesn't ever really draw attention to. You just kind of figure it out, and I think that's cool as fuck. Even though plot wise it doesn't really line up with what's happening in Space Marine 2 at
Oh,
all.
yes, 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 yes. Oh, bolt gun.
Bolt gun, yeah.
Yeah,
But I like that that's just a thing that happens and it's vaguely correct, but not exactly correct, and I just think that's kind of cool. It has this air
yeah,
of like this is something that happened, but the exact historical details are not documented properly. So now we're just guessing how this played out, and I kind of think that's cool.
yeah. I really like the stuff that bolt gun adds, barring the fact that it basically introduces the Doomslayer into the Warhammer canon. Uh, I do really like that kind of thing because it all you know is that it takes place after the events of Space Marine 1 at some point.
Yeah, uh, and before too, but
And well, maybe.
maybe. Damn.
Maybe. Because okay, no, actually it would be safe to assume that it takes place before because the only reference that I can think of is your main character Malum Kaido. Uh he has a few dialogue lines that are essentially I will finish what Captain Titus started. And because he addresses him as Captain, it's probably before Space Marine 2.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I
I don't
think shit like that's
that's my
potentially cool.
another lore dump, but yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think Space Marine set up or 40K, excuse me, is set up in a way to do that really cool. Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
uh, but it does I run the risk of like this guy doesn't need to be here.
Yeah, yeah. Or it also runs the risk of kind of like what a lot of people's gripe was with bolt gun is that like you make your character look really cool and undoubtedly it's a fun game, but then also it's like, man, this one space marine was able to kill like 12 greater demons, and then you look at the lore and it's like, man, what? But at the same time, it's hard to find that balance of like, this is really cool, and this is so lore breaking. Kind of like, Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. Fantastic games, super fun. Horrifically lore breaking.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, and I think that kind of thing where like a universe has a game that is lore breaking is fine as long as you make it clear that this is a spin-off. Like the Dune MMO that's just coming out soon-ish, I think.
oh, the fucking
Uh,
what? The Dune MMO?
Dune MMO, yeah, they're making a Dune MMO where you play on Arrakis.
What the fuck?
Uh, it looks pretty good. Uh, but the way that they're explaining the story is that this is a timeline in which
Damn. So I just looked it
this
up.
is a time. Yeah, it looks good. This is a timeline in which Paul was never born. So all of that stuff never happened. Uh,
I do
and I
love the
think
concept of Dune if I don't have to pretend Dune exists. That's pretty cool.
exactly, yeah, and it's I think that that kind of thing is good if you want to have like a what if scenario, or you want to have a game where you can kind of do your own thing. The issue arises when, hey, all of the 40K stuff that gets published is canon. Damn. Okay.
Well,
Shit.
40K I think does at least have this cool inherent setup to its the way the universe works, where everything being canon doesn't necessarily mean everything is as presented.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say one thing I absolutely love, and to be clear, I don't mind the introduction of Malum Cato. It raises some questions. Uh, Malum Cato, the main character in Bolt Gun, his name is literally "I kill evil" in Latin.
Yeah. Oh, dude, have you ever
And
uh, the sorry, there's
no, you go ahead.
Final Fantasy 15 uses Latin a lot in its naming schemes,
Uh,
and some of the translations are fucking hysterical. I'm gonna look some up while you finish your statement.
sure, sure. I think Malum Cato runs into the same problem that the Fire Warrior game brings up, where like this one Tau soldier kills like a Titan.
Oh, I hate that game by the
Uh,
way.
and I really like how they've canonized both games. I think it was difficult for a while, but they've kind of like canonized it in the way that like the people in universe don't know how they're doing this. It's not explained as some like, oh yes, they are blessed by the emperor. It's like no, they don't know how the hell these people are doing this. They're just not going to ask questions. Let them keep doing their thing. It's almost like they're the Doomslayers. It's like we don't know what he's doing or how or we don't know how he's doing this stuff, but he's doing it for and it's helping us, so we're just gonna let him keep doing it. That is not our business.
One of the major characters in Final Fantasy 15's name is literally just like friendship sword.
Friendship sword.
It's so fucking funny. Or I guess the
That's
sword
hilarious.
friendship actually, which makes sense
Uh,
in context, but it still reads really funny. Well,
yeah, yeah.
one of the other major characters is like fire science or something like that, or fire
That's
knowledge.
hilarious.
It's so good. It's so
Please tell
dumb.
me they're like a fire mage.
He is. He's the magically inclined person in the party,
Of course he is.
and he's also just some smart jackass. So it's really funny.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, but
But
that's really all I had to say about when games need sequels, and also rabbit trailed a little bit into 40K because that always happens.
you know,
Uh,
in short, I think anything can benefit from a sequel. It's just a matter of what you're gonna do with it that matters more than
it,
anything.
it's also and the intention of the company too.
That's just true of anything though. Like
Yeah,
anything can be made with bad intentions, and given the hobbies we enjoy, there's a great many of bad intentions behind things being made. But it's also worth noting that a lot of the bad intentions come from publishers more than developers.
yes, yeah,
Your developers are probably not trying to make a bad game. They might make a bad game, and there's some instances where your game is self-published, and maybe you do have both bad intentions there. But by and large, like I can't imagine a universe where you get a group of game developers crunching out a game trying to make something bad,
yeah,
or
yeah.
who care so
I
little that they're making something bad.
intentionally, yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of room for unintentional poor decisions and all that, but I would bet majority of the time your developers are just trying their best and are probably being forced to make these bad decisions by either incompetent direction or publisher mandates or some of the all the above,
yeah, yeah.
which is maybe a little optimistic of me, but I think developers are more likely to lean on the side of being akin to an artist than a publisher. So a lot of your truly poor decisions are probably coming from the people who only see the money and not any of the artistic value in what's being made here.
I suspect so. Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Because who's gonna do a 12-hour workday crunching out code or working on art assets for something that they know they were trying to make as shitty and scummy as possible?
Honestly, yeah, that's. I'm sure it happens somewhere, but I don't
I
think it's
I'm not
the
gonna say
norm.
it doesn't happen, but statistically, it's such a rough work environment that the actual developers can't be like all of them can't be that cynical.
Right.
Like somewhere in this pipeline, someone's got some passion for what's going on here, and I think it's easy to see in a lot of things if you look for it hard enough.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, well, for this thing named after Dungeons and Dragons, technically, we sure didn't talk about tabletop anything.
yeah. Maybe next episode we'll
maybe
see.
maybe next time we can fish some tabletop topics in there. But I think that'll work out pretty well for
Yeah,
so I don't know what the schedule for this is gonna end up being like as far as uploads go, but let's see. There'll be
it
another
sure
one of
will
these.
happen.
This sure will happen again. Okay.
Yeah.